السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسوله أفضل الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى تابعيهم ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. My dear respected brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here this morning. This is indeed one of the challenging times that we're living in, and the fact that we are coming together, putting our hands together to think and act in a very intelligent, professional, and productive way so we can serve our communities, we can serve our cities and our country in the best way possible. I'd like to start with a few verses of the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked us and instructed us in them how to handle these situations, and we will use them as our guidelines for today's gathering, in addition to our commitment to be professional and very directly to the point and not waste time or energy so we can be more productive in what we're trying to achieve. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and we will test you with calamities, with shortage of lives, security, money. But give the glad tidings for those who are patient and those who persevere. Those, when they're afflicted with calamities and hardship, they will say, we belong to God, and to God we will return. This is the first principle for today. When we are facing any challenges and calamities, we are always instructed by our Lord to be patient and try our best to deal with these difficulties in a calm and peaceful way. But also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran in a very beautiful way, وَأَعِدُّ لَهُمْ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن قُوَّةٍ وَمِن رِّبَاطِ الْخَيْلِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, prepare yourself to face evil, to face challenges with the best tools of strength, with the best ways to protect yourselves, to protect your community, and to make sure that you're always not an easy victim or an easy prey for those who seek evil. So these are our principles for today's event. Thank you very much for coming on such a short notice. The Islamic Shura Council is an umbrella organization for 78 Islamic Center and Mosque in Southern California, from San Diego all the way to the Valley. We represent, or we try to be, the voice of the 500,000 to 600,000 Muslims in Southern California. We have so many leaders sitting here today. We have our board members. I would like to introduce them who are here with us today. Mr. Awais Dadaboy and Sister Bushra Bengi. I think she's handling the scenes from behind. And then Malik, our amazing director, Malik Bendelhoum. So the Shura Council is here to serve and to coordinate our efforts so we can achieve the best results in our community and inshallah build the foundations for the next era of the Muslims of Southern California. We have amazing speakers today with us, amazing specialists and experts. The way we're going to be doing it, we're going to have each one of them will speak for less than 5 minutes about their field, about the topic that they are good at. And then after that, we will have an open discussion. Any of you is able to ask questions or even suggest things. And then after that, we will end up with an action plan that the Shura Council will put together, and then we'll share it with the leadership of the masajid and the community afterwards. We do have this session recorded completely. It's not live. After we record everything, we'll edit it. We'll make sure it's done in a professional way and then send it as a tool for our Islamic centers and organizations to use to protect themselves and to know how to handle such difficult situations. If any of you like us to take your comment out from the video, please reach out to me or to Malik after the session is over, and we'll make sure that if you don't like to be heard speaking, we will take that part out from the video that will be presented, inshallah. Our speakers today, or our experts today, I'll start with them from the right side, your right, Ms. Nuha Al-Shuqairi. She's an expert in the mental health field and very well esteemed and sought after therapist in the community. Everyone knows her, mashallah, and we're very, very honored to have you with us. With her, who claims to be one of her students, Sister Dina Hilmi, another expert and a rising star in our community who's doing, mashallah, a lot of good work when it comes also to the mental health. Next to her, Idina Likovic, who is a well-known leader in the community. She used to coordinate the communication and the media department at the Muslim Public Affairs. Now she is handling projects that deals with crisis management and all that. So she will be talking about this as well. Sister Marwa Rifai, she is with Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE LA, and she handles civil rights department and work that relates to our community's rights as American citizens. Sgt Luqman from the Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD, who's been sending us a lot of emails lately and inviting us to a lot of meetings with the chief of LAPD, and he is a community member, and he inshallah will be addressing the audience from a police and law enforcement point of view. How do we handle these situations? And finally, Salam Al-Mariyati, the president of the Muslim Public Affairs Council, who will be discussing with us our relationship with our elected officials, representatives, on things that are related to tragedies like this and how to handle them. And last and least, my name is Dr. Ahmed Subuh, the chairman of the Islamic Shura Council of Southern California, and I'll be moderating this session. We do have 3 more experts who will be talking about security and insurance of the masajid. Mr. Maher Darwish, the CEO of a company, Dynastar. Yeah, Dynastar is a high-profile security company who is setting up all these surveillance and security systems for many of the high-profile buildings in the country. We are very honored to have you with us here. We also have Mr. Nino Abush, the insurance expert when it comes to masajid and coverage, that how do we handle these things if there's a fire, if there's an attack on a masjid, what does the insurance cover, and what do we look in the insurance policies to cover the masjid in these situations? And finally, our dear respected brother Kabir Moment, who is also owner of a security company that provides a lot of security service for many of the masajid. The 3 of them also will be addressing the audience for a little bit, and then after that we'll open it for Q&A and discussions with everybody, inshallah. We'll keep it, inshallah, short and brief, and hopefully we'll have a very productive session. Some of the panelists have to leave early, we understand that, so let's get it moving. I would like to start with Sgt Luqman. So if you can turn the mic on, please, and go for it.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sgt Luqman Watkins. I'm with the Los Angeles Police Department. Before I even start talking, I feel like I need to let you know who is addressing you, just so you can get a good feel. I know I have about 5 minutes, so I'll keep it brief. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and I served 9.5 years in the Navy under the Special Operations Branch. And about 12 years now, I've been with the Los Angeles Police Department. And it's been a good tour. My position now is that I'm the citywide officer in charge of community outreach. And what that means is that we try to build trust with those communities that lack trust within the police. And we do that in a number of ways. I have a great team of officers that are active pretty much 24 hours a day. There isn't a time where you would call or a community member would call that we would not answer our phone. We're very, very proactive in that approach. So that's me. And what I want to talk about essentially is the current climate and the current condition and what's going on, not just in Los Angeles, but in the world. And that issue is it's hatred. It's hatred. And what can we do as a community to mitigate any kind of a substantial risk to our community members? The biggest thing we can do, number one, is have a strong alliance with your police department. And this is why. When the incident happened in New Zealand, I just have to say this. When the incident happened in New Zealand, I immediately addressed a number of community members via text. And in that text message, we were able to establish a few things. And we had great leadership with Brother Salam over here, who coordinated a massive press conference in which we were able to put the word out, but not just put the word out, we had support from those folks who are outside of Islam. It was more of a interfaith support based on the relationship that the police department have with community members. It is very important that you have that link. And I think that's the first step, is having that link, that somebody that you can trust and call at the drop of a dime when a critical incident happened. The second thing is to know what the surrounding, what the situational awareness looks like. And I know we have the security experts and they'll probably go into that. But if we can have a strong relationship with the police department, I think that we can mitigate a lot of issues. And I'll leave it at that.
All right. Thank you very much. So before we still have a few minutes, maybe if I can ask you, if there is any advice or suggestion for, practically speaking, and on the ground, when we see someone who's suspicious, when we see something that is not normal, how do you consider what would be the best approach for us to handle these situations, or how to train our community to handle these situations?
Well, they say when you see something, say something. The good thing is that everybody has a cell phone. This thing right here is one of the most amazing things you can have. If you see someone out there recording the masjid or taking pictures or things look suspicious, take a picture of them. Call the police. That link to the police department, send that picture to them and say, hey, this guy is suspicious. If you contact me, I'll guarantee you will have somebody at the masjid within a couple of minutes, because I'm very dialed in when it comes to the community, because we can't afford to have things happen on our soil. So if an attack happened here or something happens here at this masjid, it happens to all of us. It's not just a single place. It happens to us all because we all feel it. So it is an active attempt to really do something. You see something, say something.
Now, you're talking mainly about LA, right? Because here we have majority of people come from different cities and different counties as well. So does that apply to all PDs, or do you have communication with other PDs, or you're suggesting that we establish our relationship with our own local PD? What do you see?
So I would say establish your relationship with your own local PD, but I am a resource. Me and my team, Rashad Sharif over there, Brother Sharif, we are a resource to you. We have the capabilities of reaching out to other police departments.
You have that? Okay.
Oh, yes. We have the resources. So if something were to happen and it is an emergency, we can assist rather quickly.
We also are happy to have with us Lieutenant Fro Jahid from the Irvine PD. Thank you for being here. You'd like to say anything? A few words?
As the brother said from LAPD, establish relationships with your local police agencies. And we have relationships here in Orange County. I'm a resource in Irvine as well. Brother has my card. If you need me, get a hold of me. We also have connections with other agencies within Orange County. We have a fusion center that we all communicate. And one of my officers, as a matter of fact, is part of that fusion center. So whatever you guys need in Orange County or LA County, you have two good resources here that are available to you. It's actually 24/7.
And we have Rashad as well from the LAPD. Thank you very much. Several police departments in Southern California have now Muslim officers, sergeants, lieutenant. I know the Pomona PD have Sharif Arfan. The LA Sheriff Department has Mike and different other people who are there. So alhamdulillah, we have good connections and communications with many of the law department. Okay, so thank you very much. Really appreciate that. I will go to Marwa. Marwa is a civil rights attorney with CARE LA. We have to be careful not to be doing things that might harm our community rather than doing things that might be beneficial. What are our rights? What are our duties when it comes to situations like this? Please let us know what your thoughts about that.
Yeah, so I mean, as a disclaimer, CARE as an organization has worked with the LAPD and worked with local law enforcement on a lot of reporting of incidents that were causes for concern or threats, to the community or institutions. And so the first thing is, if you feel like your masjid or Sunday school or anywhere where you feel uncomfortable engaging with law enforcement, you can always utilize the resources at CARE, and we can actually use our contacts at the LAPD or other law enforcement agencies to act as that liaison for you. One, for you to get the rapid response that you need, and two, also to bear in mind that we're being cognizant of civil rights issues and other issues in relation to the Muslim community that you need to be aware of. And so we don't want mosques and, other Muslim institutions where you're dealing with a vulnerable demographic like children, a Muslim private school, where you feel like you shouldn't be able to engage with law enforcement for security concerns if you have them. And so really the best advice that we have is to utilize resources at CARE. I know my staff and other attorneys make ourselves available for that all the time. Sgt Luqman can tell you, I've personally called him to make sure that there were certain security issues that the community has dealt with that are dealt with through the LAPD. And so we can act as that intermediary for you. What goes along with that is obviously we want the community, especially as leaders of masajid and other institutions, to be cognizant of civil rights issues that the community faces with. The Muslim community since September 11th has not had the best relationship with law enforcement, and that stems a lot from issues regarding profiling and surveillance that we've dealt with nonstop, and harassment. And so really what we want you to think about is, if you're inviting especially federal law enforcement agencies into your mosques for security reasons or emergency plans, to keep in mind that it's always best to have an attorney present there. And so if you don't have it already or you can afford it, your mosque should have attorneys on retainer. If you don't have attorneys on retainer, then you should establish relationships with other Muslim organizations that provide direct legal services like CARE, so that I can get to know you, we can get to know each other's schedules and issues, and that I could be there if necessary if you have an FBI agent that wants to visit your mosque to allow you to make security determinations. On the other hand, what we also advise you to do is the best route for you to take is to explore alternatives to those types of security evaluations. So like I said, our relationship with federal law enforcement agencies haven't been great. We urge you to turn to local law enforcement, fire departments, to make determinations for security evaluations if you haven't done so already. If you have a mosque that has a high population of people attending Jummah and the fire department hasn't been around to secure emergency evaluation plans, you should contact your local station to get that done. And those are really the best people to do it. Two, turn to other Muslim organizations. I know in response to the New Zealand attack, what CARE is doing to make sure that there's appropriate alternatives and really a plan there for mosques and Muslim institutions after the New Zealand attacks than just turning to federal law enforcement is ensuring that we have funding to provide resources to other Muslim institutions, to hire mental health experts, either someone on staff or on salary, part-time or full-time, that can provide mental health services to mosques or youth groups or whenever it's needed, to address any mental health issues that are resulting from the trauma of witnessing what we witnessed 2 weeks ago. The other thing that we're trying to do is trying to secure funding to hire private security agencies to make sure that they're on staff and available to come to your mosque and provide you with assessments of what your security needs may be, if you haven't done that already. In addition to that, we're also going to go look for funding that helps secure active shooter training and response training so that mosques can have that in their back pocket, so at the very least, masajid staff, and even if it's something that can be coordinated with the congregants to attend, that's available for them too. The last thing that hopefully we're going to be able to launch next month in response to what's been going on is that there's been a lot of nonprofit funding for security grants. One of the main ones is from the Department of Homeland Security, and I know I just talked about federal law enforcement agencies, but that grant is actually something that's given through local municipalities. So California Office of Emergency Services is facilitating that grant to different nonprofits in the state. And so we're hoping to host grant workshops so that you can send people from the mosque or staff from the mosque to come and sit through what the process is like to apply for those types of grants. And because we've already been able to establish a security assessment through a private company, that's one of the main prerequisites for that grant. So after attending the grant workshop, you should have already been able to coordinate that security assessment plan to submit with your grant proposal to be able to pay for the security needs that were determined in the evaluation. And that's really the best alternative we've tried to come up with so that we're not exposing our community to any vulnerabilities that we have to be taken advantage of, and also to make sure that your bases are all covered. And again, I urge you guys all, if there's any security issue, threats that you've received at your mosque, anything that looks off, and we've gotten complaints from mosques as little as, hey, we noticed that there was nobody here over the weekend, and there were these bottles lined up on the side of the masjid. We don't know if that's a signal for someone to come to the mosque because somebody's away, or it's just people loitering on the property. And so we'll even handle and try to look through and follow through on complaints of that nature. And so really just to utilize the resources available to you from the different Muslim organizations available. And like I said, at CARE, we really are trying to free up our legal department at least to make sure that those resources are available for you.
So thank you very much, Marwa. Appreciate it. So how do we differentiate? Like, let's say we're getting a lot of emails about grants, about fundings that says this funding could be used for your security measures. Is there a way that the leadership of the masajid can decide if this is a good program to apply for or not? How do we determine that?
Yeah, so I think the problem is we don't have it like institutionalized to apply for funding or grant funding generally. It's just not, unless you're like an established nonprofit, like we have a grant writer. So that person's responsible for researching grant specifics, requirements, strings attached to the money. And so really it's just organizations like CARE or MPAC or any Muslim advocates just making sure that we're providing the outreach necessary to educate people on staff at masajid to be able to research and look out for those things too. And so, I mean, there's a few things that you should be looking at with grant funding. One, what are the requirements? Two, what are the strings attached to it? And a lot of that sometimes is embedded in language that's not understandable. So a lot of grants will use things like deliverables, reports, metrics. And so a lot of people are unfamiliar with exactly what that entails. And so hopefully our development department, at least because it's grown a lot this past year, will have someone, a part of the outreach team within development and the grant writer that we have hired, be able to do trainings with other people to be able to at least prepare them for that preliminary process.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You mentioned mental health and the need in our community to talk about mental health. For many of you who don't know, myself, Sheikh Muhammad Faqih, the Imam of this masjid, Sheikh Nu'man Bej from the Institute of Knowledge, and Sheikh Umar Sulaiman from Yaqeen Institute, we all went to New Zealand last week, and we attended the funeral of the victims of those who were massacred in the terrorist attack in Christchurch. And we got to meet their families and their children and their wives and their parents. We got to meet the survivors and their families as well. And if there is one thing that we realized, that there is a major need for mental health therapy for all of them. It is definitely a catastrophe. It is definitely a tragedy, a massacre that it's going to have its implications on the community for many, many years to come. I mean, you're talking about a small community who 50 of them immediately are gone. There is a group of sisters who now call themselves the 13 widows, who each one of their husbands died in that day. There are parents who lost 3-year-old children. There are children who lost their 70-year-old dads. It was definitely something impactful in a very overwhelming way. We noticed that. We tried as much as we could. We tried to give them condolences, to comfort them, to support them in every way possible. But of course, it needs professional help. So we are very fortunate and lucky to have with us 2 professionals in the mental therapy field. We'll start with Ms. Nash Shuqairi, and she has a few things to say. If you can give her the mic, please.
السلام عليكم. الحمد لله كما ينبغي لجلال وجهه وعظيم سلطانه والصلاة والسلام على أطيب المرسلين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. So I am just going to be maybe a bit practical. So far all that we have heard is about the community level response to the tragedy. So I'm going to take it a little bit to the maybe individual level and the family level. And I'm not going to be talking specifically about the people who were directly impacted by the tragedy. So I am going to address you who actually were traumatized secondarily. Okay? So because talking to the people who have gone through the actual tragedy is going to be a little bit different. So I'm clarifying where I'm coming from. So whenever I like to talk about mental health, the message I would like people to know, mental health, to simply distill it, means we need to talk about 4 layers, okay? And the layers are feelings, thoughts, decisions, and the decisions could be a behavior or an action, or could be another thought. There is another layer which is all the way up here, and this one is a deeper level, and this one has to do with beliefs. And the beliefs are not necessarily religious beliefs. They could be just simply beliefs about what people believe about themselves, what they believe about the world, what they believe about others, okay? And this belief is actually behind the terrorist attack in New Zealand. The attacker had a belief that Muslims are, you can fill in the blanks, right? But that belief is what actually prompted the behavior and the action, which was unfortunately the tragedy that we all heard or witnessed. Okay? So whenever we're talking mental health, we need to distinguish between these 4 layers. So anyone who's struggling, we need to clarify, what are we feeling, what are we thinking, and what are we deciding? Why am I saying that? Reason I'm saying that is many people in the community saw the video. How many have watched the video? Yeah. So even though you were not there, in a way you became secondarily a victim just by watching the video, right? And this actually is, to me, I was reflecting about why is this tragedy different than all the other tragedies that happened before? It was because of the live streaming that was happening. So immediately, on an unconscious level, we all felt, whoever watched the video, especially if they watched it live, going on live, you became part of the tragedy in the moment. And that is something we did not experience before. We saw videos of other tragedies before, we saw pictures of other tragedies, but that subtle and unconscious, like I am there and I'm watching this tragedy unfold and I am helpless. I can't do anything about it. And I'm watching these people die. Okay? So this is new. And it actually brings to the forefront many calls for intentional action on an individual level. Okay? It's true we need to really depend on the community, we need to depend on the government, we need to depend on each other, but we also first need to ask ourselves, what are we doing? So, making sure you don't click on videos of this nature. This is important. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean that you don't care. It just means that you know that such images and such videos will stay with you. And different people have different tolerance for these images. I know myself, I'll tell you, I am very sensitive to visual images. I know that about myself. I do not consider myself weak. I just know my limits. And I know I cannot see images like that, because what happens after I see image, I'm just gonna speak about myself. If I were to see an image like that, I will be distraught for several days. I'm not gonna be able to sleep. I may have flashbacks. I'm gonna remember the image. And when I remember the image, all the feelings are gonna come up within my body of shock and anger and fury and helplessness. And that is not taking us anywhere. The call for action, like some people will say, oh, I need to see the video so I know what to do. You can do what you need to do without seeing the video, just knowing what's happened. You don't need to watch those images in order for the call for action to happen. In mental health, we need to distill the 4 layers. We need to become more intentional on an individual level. We cannot just say other people are going to take care of it. We need to take care of ourselves. We need to take care of the messages we are sending to our children, because our children are the community. We need to take care about the messages even as imams and leaders. What kind of messages are we sending to the community? Because where did his hate come of the Muslim community? It came from other community members. And we need to be careful, because 9/11 was a wake-up call for us. We really dismissed the hate messages within our community. So, and I am calling for individual call of action. Okay.
Thank you very much. Inshallah, this is one of the things that we are going to propose to our communities, to establish these kinds of workshops with experts and specialists like yourselves. That inshallah, that's going to be one of the recommendations, one of the action plan or the blueprint that we're going to present to our member organizations and to our masajid. This is what we like you to do. Invite the local PD, invite the local police department, let them give you maybe a life active shooting seminar or training. Invite mental health therapists who will tell us how to talk to our children and our youth about these things. Hopefully we'll get some questions after the panel is done about some other practical things. Dina, what do you like to add when it comes to mental health?
MashaAllah, Jazakallah khair, Sister Naha. She kind of covered a lot of information. And just to kind of piggyback a little bit on it. So what happens in these types of situations is our belief systems about the world get challenged, right? We sit here, we work really hard in terms of, for ourselves and for our children, to really create this sense of there's safety in the world, people are good, and everything is fair, right? You do good, good things are going to happen. And then something like this happens and it completely shatters all of that. It's like, okay, it seems like the world is a very unsafe place. People cannot be trusted. And just because you do good, you could be praying and die in that moment. And so what do we do? Like, I appreciate what you said about kind of knowing your limits. So it does start, we do need to be aware of what our own limits are and to take care of ourselves. A lot of times these situations happen, and especially those in leadership, they're kind of called to show up and be there for the community. And it's sort of, okay, what are they doing? Like, I kind of want to extend that to have us be available, or other mental health professionals available for the leadership to provide that support, to really be able to create environments that we are, that people can discuss what happened at their level of comfort and kind of debrief. In these situations, people need a safe place to talk. And sometimes the message is, well, you weren't there, or like we have to go into this mode of just be there for others. And so we're overly there for others, and we're not creating a safe place even for those others to be. Because the idea is we need to get through this. We need to be strong. We can't be weak. We should just snap out of it, in quotes. And people are going to respond differently. So if we create a place, and how many of you have heard of like trauma-informed? A little bit. Okay, so that's kind of a big movement right now that's happening. It's just for different institutions, health organizations, mental health projects to basically become trauma-informed. And the idea behind trauma is, a lot of times we think of trauma as it has to be something very big. Somebody was raped, somebody was assaulted, someone was attacked. And it's like these really big situations that have to have happened in a person's life. And the truth is, anything can be traumatic. How it registers with the person is what determines whether it's a traumatic experience or not. And a lot of times, especially after 9/11, us as Muslims are being exposed constantly to a lot of sort of like micro traumas that become more of a complex, turns into a complex trauma. And so I'm going to kind of invite and kind of go off of what you're saying with regards to creating opportunities for us to come out and share a little bit more about how we can handle trauma, how we can deal with it, and how we can create the language around it where we allow people to feel safe. And we kind of veer away a little bit from the shoulds of how people should respond or should react, because every person will be different. And so if we take care of ourselves, we'll be able to take care of our families, take care of the communities, and make change. So really, really quick, just kind of 4 points. So one would be it's important for us to stay connected in these times. Know what your strengths are. Who's your circle? Who's someone that you can go and talk to that's a safe person? And even with all of these sort of negative images or negative messages that are being relayed, where can we find the positive? Where can we find something that we can actually, something that we have control over? How can we do something that it has a positive impact on others? Because we know that helping others in moments like this, in times of distress, actually increases our level of, I don't want to say like happiness, but it does make us feel better, and it gives us a sense of control over our lives. It's important to kind of reach out to our spiritual leaders and spiritual advisors and kind of make some sense of all of this, and also being able to tap into health professionals, whether it's physicians, doctors, and also the mental health professionals as well.
Thank you very much. And would you suggest the workshops that we do in our masajid would be open for everybody? Or should we have one for the youth, one for the kids, one for the adults? Is it the same message, or should we have separate sessions for each one?
I would say that, a part of it, some of the message can be across the board for them, and then at the same time, there could be like almost a big session, and then some like breakouts with different age groups, just developmentally to talk about more of what it is that they can do. Because, the youth, they'll have their own sense of
Absolutely.
They're very creative and much more resilient sometimes than we give them credit for. And so just giving them the space where they can kind of relate to one another and bring up some topics and maybe even come up with ideas of how to cope with it and how to do something impactful, positively impactful in the community.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So when I was in Christchurch, my plan was to arrive back here on Saturday afternoon, and then I get a call from Salam Al-Mariati telling me that, are you available Saturday morning? We have some kind of famous guest who's going to be showing up. His name is Bernie Sanders. It's like, oh, okay. And we'd like you to be with us because you will give first-hand witness of what's happening. You represent the Shura Council. So MPAC and the Islamic Center of Southern California organized an event with Bernie Sanders and his family, his wife and daughter, and his campaign people. And so I changed my flight to arrive early, came from the airport directly to the masjid there. And it was such a very, very powerful meeting. If this guy becomes the president, he got to meet with Muslims firsthand. He got to hear our stories and our thoughts and our concerns about these things. So, and he realized that the decisions made in the White House do not stop within the boundaries of the United States. They go all over the world. How do we do that? How do we communicate with our elected officials, our representatives, people who are running for elections, whatever it is? This is an important part of the puzzle. This is an important piece of the puzzle of how to handle these situations. That's how we have with us Salam al-Mariyati from the Muslim Public Affairs Council, who will be addressing some of the thoughts and some of the advice about how to come with these things.
Thank you, Ahmed. Assalamu alaikum. And I think also, our leadership in the Shura Council has to be underscored in our deep appreciation, and even Ahmed making the time was very inspirational for all of us to come and telling the story. When he told the story to Senator Sanders of what was going on in New Zealand and the Muslims there, it moved the senator to the point where he stood up and embraced Ahmed. And that was a very powerful image for the community, and I think it's an image that we want to show the rest of society. And I think the question that I've been given is, how do we reach to that point? And let me just identify three important components. The first component is understanding the problem. You can't come up with a solution unless you define, like a good engineer, and my dad is here, who's one of the best engineers, you have to define the problem accurately to come up with the right solution. You can come up with solutions, but they could just be all over the place. And right now, the problem is this rise of white nationalism, which is not just a problem in the United States, it's a global problem. And the global problem also is not just white nationalism, but ideological supremacy that you find in Europe and in the Middle East. So it's a problem across the board. It is a problem of scapegoating minorities. It is a problem for us American Muslims, not just because it happened to one of our co-religionists, but it happened to a black church in Charleston. It happened to a Jewish synagogue in Pittsburgh. It happened to a mosque in Quebec. It happened to Sikhs in Oak Creek. So what I'm saying is there are two answers to this then that are very important. Number one is to build a coalition, because we're only 1% of the population in America, and numbers is about strength in that diversity. So you would see, for example, the Jewish community is up in arms. There was a whole write-up in they have the Jewish Journal. Are you familiar with the Jewish Journal? This is their weekly journal that goes out to all the synagogues, and all they talked about was the press conference that Ahmed was talking about, that Luqman was talking about, and the event that we had about Muslims bringing Jewish leaders into the mosque, and we're in solidarity with one another. So the type of solidarity is very important, so that we are not singled out, so that we are a strength in confronting that challenge and that problem, not coming from a position of weakness. Number two, in terms of dealing with the problem of ideological and white nationalism, is that we are not surprised. And part of the issue is that Muslims remain invisible in the eyes of the American public. We do not have a voice. We do not have a national platform. Now we have, some Muslim celebrities like Mahdi Hassan and Hassan Minhaj. They see more of them. But where is the voice of the community in the discourse on issues that are impacting Americans as it relates to Islam and Muslims? Muslims are not there. We are talked about, like you'll turn on even the most liberal talk shows on MSNBC and CNN, usually it's four white men talking about Muslims and Islam. So we have to demand a seat at the table. You have to demand it. This is our right, our aspiration for self-determination and the self-narrative that we should have the right to talk about our community and our issues. So Muslims should have a seat at the table in the media. Muslims should have a seat at the table in Hollywood. Muslims should have a seat at the table when Facebook is complaining about the issues that they're dealing with in technology and so on and so forth. And that is MPAC's mission, is to get a Muslim at the table of every conversation that is important to our society and especially to our community. The second component is We are not in the business of national security. That's, you know, the law enforcement specialists and other, but we are in the business of human security. Human security is when you collect the masses and they build on one another to protect one another. It is a pact that we make with our neighbors. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was the master of creating those alliances and those pacts. When you read the Medina Constitution, it is a pact he made with every tribe in Medina. And they were not Muslim. So we Muslims in America are in the same situation. So our mosque is not just a place to pray. Of course, we should have that space to pray. But like this, it is the community center. The Prophet's mosque was really the city hall of Medina. Every issue that was a concern to the people in his city came to the mosque. And he would discuss everything, even the issue related to his own wife. The community was involved in the discussion if it was a public concern. So every mosque should invite the church and the synagogue and the temple and the Rotary Club and the what have you. They should be here, and that will build security for us. When we do that, what happens, and I think this mosque and the bigger mosques know, that the community comes and they form a human chain around the mosque as a symbol of that defense that the mosque is protected, not just by you and me, but by the larger society. And that is how you have to build those relations. It's the human relations. And when we had the press conference, we had about 100 organizations represented at the press conference. This is from years of work in preparation for that moment. So human relations is very important. The last thing then, the last component is government relations. What is important as it relates, so we talked about the problem of ideological supremacy and nationalism, we talked about human relations and human security. Now, what are government relations supposed to serve, how are they supposed to serve our community? The bottom line is government is a business. It's about tax dollars. Those tax dollars that Mario was talking about in securing houses of worship, they are our tax dollars. We should determine how those tax dollars are used. And there's one very important data point. I don't have time to go over the whole issue, but one important. Mosques are not being given the tax dollars to secure their houses of worship. You would have 100 mosques apply for the grants. Maybe one of them is up for consideration. So the money is going elsewhere. We should demand that our congressmen or congresswomen, our senators, write to FEMA, write to the state. We should get our state legislature, write a letter on our behalf. Where is the money going? How can it be used to secure all houses of worship, not only a few of them at the expense of the rest of us? We can help in writing that letter, and the city council should have a hearing on that. What's going on with the funds that are coming from the federal to the state to the city, and these are our tax dollars. So, brothers and sisters, it is a time for a sense of ownership, not a sense of victimhood. We have to own the problem, and that is how we can provide solutions for our community, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much. When I've been going around talking about my visit to New Zealand to many and then I always mention that there is a lot of good things that I came up with or I learned from that visit. And one of them is how the non-Muslims in the city of Christchurch dealt with the tragedy. It was such an empowering, heartwarming feelings that people gave to the Muslim community. On Friday, when we're going between Friday prayer and the hotel, every single woman in the street was wearing a hijab on. And they will come and tell us, sorry for your loss. When we were in the plane going there, it was Air New Zealand, every single attendant came to us and said, we're sorry for your loss. The attendants of the airlines, the station manager in LA sent us an escort who took us from the desk all the way to the plane through security, and then they called someone else to meet us on the other side. When we see the Prime Minister of New Zealand acting in that way, she's acting that way because that's a reflection of her people. She's not being by herself. She's reflecting the feelings of the people. That's how politicians work. They reflect their constituents, their voters, how they think they reflect them back to us. So it was a beautiful thing. And building these coalitions with people around us will make a powerful impact on our security, safety, and also our mental health as well. Keep that in mind. So we go now to Edina. Edina used to work with Impact and then decided she quit on them. I don't know how you guys let her go. But she decided to do something that's highly needed in the community, which is crisis management and how to communicate and how to send out media correspondence, press release, and all that. So we'd like you to share with us some of your experience about that and how to handle the media when it comes to something like this. And speaking of the media, where is Aaron? You chased him out. Oh, okay. Aaron is from NPR. So they are here. They did some interviews earlier, and they're making a report on this town hall meeting. And I think tomorrow it will be aired. All yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, most compassionate, most merciful. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Alaikum salam.
I'm honored to be here, and I want to clarify that crisis response is one of the things I do. Luckily, it's not all I do, because it's very depressing, or it can be. And I want to start with a simple idea, which is that when crises take place, we know that the human response is fight, flight, freeze, and there's a fourth one, isn't there? It's just the three, fight, flight, and freeze, right? You might find that you're a mosque leader and that you might have a fight response, right? Or that you might have a flight response, get me out of here, right? Or that you might have a freeze response, which is, I can't believe this is happening, right? And you might find that within your leadership team that you have all three going on, sometimes in the same people, right? That there is just so much that is going on. So I want to offer you a quick taste of how to get yourself sort of prepared, because in terms of being crisis ready, if you will, okay? What I learned at MPAC under Salam's leadership and Dr. Maher and so many others is exactly what Salam talked about, which is preparation, which is proactive relationship building so that we are not exchanging business cards in moments of crisis. And that instead that we have the relationships that we need in place, or at least we have the contacts in place before we need them. And that, just having some of that in place will help you to be crisis ready on a whole other level. Because you're not in that moment when you're in fight or flight or freeze thinking, who do we need to talk to? Who's the law enforcement again? Who do we know in interfaith? That's not the time to be collecting the information, right? Instead, you want that information so that you can go to it, and multiple people can go to it, especially within the leadership of your mosque. So some basic suggestions that I want to make is having a local media list. So what are the local media outlets? And you can collect Twitter handles, you can collect email addresses online. And if you can't find specific people, you can just find what their news tips email address is and their phone number, their like hotline. This is a 1-hour task at most. If you have volunteers or teenagers, either one of those can get you that list pretty quickly so that, again, you have something. And I highly recommend Google Docs and Google folders so that you can put this stuff online and that you can share it with your leadership team. And that you can share it quickly in the moment of a crisis so that multiple people have access and you're not sending out attachments and stuff, right? This is just the pragmatic logistics of it. I also want to offer to you that I have an existing email list that with Salam's permission that I'd be happy to share with you. That it's just a list of like 40 email addresses or something from across the Southern California area, and it includes people that are also local reporters from national media that are based here locally. The reason that we got all those people at whether it was Bernie Sanders or the press conference that happened the next day after the New Zealand attacks, was because I already had a media list. And sure, some of those people might recognize my name because I send them stuff and have sent them stuff over all these years. But if you send an email that says urgent mosque attack last night in the subject line in whatever city, you too, right, will be paid attention to very quickly. So paying attention to what you put in the subject line is critical, and I'm sort of jumping ahead here, but that's how you use this email list. And the other thing I'm gonna tell you right now is BCC people. Don't share everybody's email addresses with each other. So when you're media blasting, right, BCC everybody. So that you're maintaining some discretion, but you can CC your leadership team or whoever your core people are so that the media folks can see who the other core people are if that's what you decide is important. Does that make sense? So that's just a basic thing in terms of having that media list ahead of time. What Salem mentioned in terms of the interfaith list, right, the government list, you should also have those lists, right? This could be one spreadsheet where you have multiple tabs, where you just have like, here's our mosque contacts, and everybody dumps in their stuff so that you have names, titles, email addresses, and phone numbers. Hopefully cell phones especially, so that you can also do text blasts. One of the reasons that people are able to show up quickly, as we know, is because we're able to text people or WhatsApp people, right? And be able to give them the information and they can act quickly. So being able to, again, have that information is really critical. So then, that's part of the mechanics of just having a media list. I want to back up and talk about what's related to that. Raise your hand if you're connected to a mosque. Okay, so that's most of the people here. Raise your hand if you have a communications team or committee or task force in your mosque. Okay, you all have a lot of work to do. Your first assignment is to create a communications committee. Okay? And I'm happy to advise you for free on how to do this because I don't have enough time to do it right now. But it's basically having 3 to 5 people. It doesn't have to be a lot of people. 3 to 5 people. Hopefully it includes your board chair or vice chair because you need somebody in a core leadership capacity. It involves somebody who hopefully has communications experience. That's part of your leadership, or just a member of the community, not just, or a member of the community. And it involves hopefully a staff person or 2, right? You can figure out who the best people are. But the point of this communications team is that they are the ones, when something happens, they're gonna come together quickly. Hopefully you have a WhatsApp group for your communications team already. And you come together quickly to decide, is this a crisis? Who do we need to tell? Right? Who does this need to be communicated to inside the community and beyond the community? And I want to do a language suggestion to all of you because I'm a communications person. Rather than calling people non-Muslims, I invite you to talk about people beyond our community. Not even outside. It's not inside, outside, us, them, Muslim, non, right? All these dividing lines that we create. There's our community and there's people beyond our community. I invite you to use this language in your khutbahs, right? Not just in PR settings. Like, this is part of how we should hopefully think about things. So that communications team is gonna decide if something is a crisis, decide who needs to get told, and decide what's gonna be said. Talking points, right? The key thing I wanna tell you on talking points is that you only really need 3 or 4 of them. Sometimes 2 of them is enough. Short and sweet, so that people can personalize it. You can't remember 10 things to say, right? This is how I prepare for media, but it's also how we prepare for any sort of media engagement. I got in trouble with one, oh, Salam left. I got in trouble with one.
Just getting his coffee, but it's taking too long.
Okay. I got in trouble with one reporter at the press conference that we had right after New Zealand. Sorry, I pud into the microphone. Because I, in front of all the reporters, turned to all the interfaith people, and you can see this in the Facebook stream, and I said to all the leaders who are going to speak, keep your comments to 90 seconds or less, because as we all know, the less that you say, the more control over you have over what they use. Everybody chuckled, and then a reporter who I've known for a long time pulled me into the hallway afterwards and said that was completely unacceptable. It was so rude. You're feeding into the media is not to be trusted, and you got to control and all this stuff. But I could have said it differently, but my point still stands. The less you say, the more control you have over your message. This is not a khutbah. right? In this, exactly. In this audience, this is not a khutbah. It's about, yeah, simplifying. And again, going to 2 or 3 points maximum. And the communications team, I believe, is critical for figuring out what the 2 or 3 main things are that you want to convey. And I want to say to you right now that the first thing in a crisis, especially if it involves a terrorist attack by our community, is not, we condemn this act of terrorism, that this goes against Islam. And you might be saying, what? Isn't that the first response? No, the first response is, we are heartbroken. We are human beings with feelings, right? That's not what you're going to say, we're human beings with feelings. But you start with, we are heartbroken. Because we are not walking Qur'ans. We are human beings with feelings. And going to the mental health aspect, when we are communicating with the public, we have to communicate in feelings, not just facts. It's not Islam means peace. It is, we are grieving and heartbroken. Think about the coverage of New Zealand. Think about what the people of New Zealand taught us and what the Muslims of New Zealand taught us. In that moment, I don't know if they had a communications team. I don't know if they did.
No, they didn't.
Some of them may have been killed, quite honestly, right? Talk about a crisis. But instead of closing up, that community opened up. And people met them where they were, right? The beauty that emanated from that, and people being able to share their stories and the stories of each victim, right? Putting that human face on things. In moments of crisis, the things that we overlook as a community the most quickly is the human face. That is when we turn into the mechanical robots who say Islam means peace, right? Which is true, but it's not moving any hearts. And it's not connecting with audiences. So I implore you in those moments to think about how to move audiences. And the last thing I want to say is you can invite media professionals to the mosque for a tour beforehand, like before a crisis, I mean, like in any sort of neutral time, especially right now, there's a higher level of interest. So strike while the iron's hot. You could do a media day at the mosque where you just invite them for a lunch and a tour and a Q&A, and it's all off the record so that they can find stories. And going before Ramadan, this would be a great time to do it because it's sort of post-New Zealand, pre-Ramadan, and there's going to be media interest this year, especially with that intersection of things and mosque security and stuff. So there's definitely a lot that can be done there. And then last, they set up a Google alert for your mosque or your organization. So if you go onto Google, you can set up a Google alert with just the name of your organization. You could also put it and create a Google alert for any of your leaders or the imam or whoever is, again, publicly associated with your mosque, so that anytime a news article appears or something kind of pops up on the internet, it will come straight into your inbox. So that you are, again, not finding out about things by accident, but that you have sort of hopefully first access and then can take it to your communications team and decide if something needs to be responded to or not. So that's, yeah, and I didn't even talk about the Crisis Response Collaborative, but we'll leave that for the Q&A.
Thank you. I actually had my name on Google Alert, and I realized so many Ahmed Subhs in the world are there. Thank you very much, Edina. That's definitely, and that's another workshop by itself, by the way, and hopefully you'll have the time to go around and we can create regional forums for our community where you can come and give this in a lengthy way where people can write notes, and after that have some practical steps, inshallah, to imply in their masjid. So I do have Yusuf Miller, who is from San Diego, who was involved with a little painful incident that happened last week in Escondido, Masjid al-Nur. He will give us a few minutes to tell us about how did the community react there, what exactly happened, and then we will go from there to the security expert. Yes, thank you very much.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. My name is Yusuf Miller. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And I was asked to give a few of my thoughts on the terrorist attack that happened in Escondido, California. You probably saw the news press conference on that, where an individual or individuals tried to burn down the masjid, one of the masjids in Escondido. We have 3 Islamic centers there. They chose one, Dar al-Arqam, as their attack. There was brothers sleeping inside. They saw the flames inside. They came out. They put the flames out inside. They checked outside. The wall was on fire, 7 to 8 feet tall, almost reaching the roof. The brothers put out the fire, and there was a message relating to the tragedy in Christchurch. Now, before all this happened, after Christchurch, the very next Sunday, well, the same Sunday, we organized an interfaith and secular vigil right there in Escondido for the victims of Christchurch. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them Jannatul Firdaus. Ameen. So after that, we had a huge response all across San Diego and North County. We had people come out and stand in solidarity with us. The press was there. It was all the things that our panelists talked about was in place. The following Sunday is when the attack happened on that particular masjid. And this is one thing I wanted to key on. The response from the community, the response from law enforcement, and the response from media was the fruits of a labor that started well before that. Our relationship with other mosques, our relationship with churches and synagogues, people of faith and people of non-faith, that was already in place before this tragedy happened. So subhanAllah, the response from the community was passionate, it was strong, it was consolatory. So these things that the panel said were right on point. It's the exact things that should happen. We have Mosque in Escondido. We have 3 centers. We also have Mosque in Vista, which is one of the next cities over. We have Mosque in MCC, all across North County. And the last thing we thought, that I thought at least, that after Christchurch, something would happen in a little out-of-the-way place like Escondido. Maybe someplace bigger, San Diego, LA, something like that. But brothers and sisters, we're not immune. None of our churches, not even a masala, not even your home, not even your car. So, inshallah, we heighten our awareness, our situational awareness, what's going on with us. And like the sister said earlier, these things affect us. It affects us personally because what happened in Christchurch reached all around the globe. What happened in Escondido also affect us personally. It stacked on icing on top of this cake, so to speak. The pressure from the community was strong. We had a lot of people stop coming to the mosque or you know, they were afraid. This is normal outreach, you know, a normal impact of that. But those seats, those places in the mosque were filled by our coalition people. They came and stood in support. And like was said earlier, the sisters wore hijabs, the brothers came out, they listened to our khutbah, and they all came in. So like they said, our relationship with law enforcement, we met with law enforcement once a month for over a year now before this situation happened. Law enforcement had an invested interest with the San Diego community. So in my city, Escondido, I meet with the law enforcement there once a month, and they responded very quickly, immediately. And like was also said on the panel, I just want to relay how true this came for Escondido, what the panel said. The mental health aspect. In Dar al-Arqam, there are veterans, Muslim veterans that were in there, and you have flashbacks from things that happened to you. I'm a 24-year veteran, United States Navy. I'm a combat medic, and I served in Iraq and Afghanistan. I haven't been sleeping well since that attack in Escondido, and it's 2 blocks from my house. My kids walk by there, you know, and my family is there. Also understanding the problem, this white supremacy and any supremacy. So we know that the focal point is this white supremacy, but whether it's ideological supremacy, religious supremacy, all of this contributes to this mindset. What happened in Christchurch and what happened in Escondido, although it might seem like a point in time, it is actually a universal idea that's going around this globe, and we're all vulnerable to it. And lastly, I would like to say, when something happens to our Jewish brothers and sisters, Christian brothers and sisters, Sikhs, people of color, border issues, we need to show up for them just like they showed up for us. Because subhanAllah, when we start showing up for them, when they respond to us and say, oh, Muslims are here, how cool is that? That sounds like a good thing, but it's not. That means we're not representative. So when we show up for them, they show up for us, inshallah. So jazakallah.
Thank you very much. That's a very, very important point that Yusuf finished his talk with. You know, since 9/11, I remember very well that when an atrocity or a crime happened by someone who claims doing it because he's Muslim, we all shy from going and showing support. And I think what we're trying to say, we're not related, we're not associated. We don't want to go there to confess or admit that we have anything to do with it. You know what? That's the wrong understanding. When we saw the Prime Minister of New Zealand doing that, even though she relates to the killer with his race and his religion, no one said anything about that she's at guilt like him. When we had pastors and rabbis visiting our mosque in the past several weeks here in Southern California, even though they share the same ethnicity and some of them the same faith, we did not associate their faith with it. So do not be shy of going to those places. God forbid this happens again. Inshallah, we will never have to see this again. But if it does happen, and unfortunately, more realistically, it will happen somewhere, we should be there with flowers, with candles, with cards, with everything that we can to show the community support. Because it did feel very, very beautifully in our hearts when we saw them in our masajid. When you see, Brother Arif, we received flowers, right, in our masjid. Many masajids received bouquets of flowers after Christchurch. So it would be nice to do the same if, God forbid, something happened like this to others. Now we get into a little bit more practicality. We have two security experts. We have Brother Maher Darwish from Dana Start, who are specialized in high-profile buildings and facilities, creating security systems for them, who will share with us his thoughts on that. I don't know if you're noticing, but we have a lot of talents in our community. Look how amazing is that, and look how amazing the people who's going to speak after. It is such a beautiful compilation of talents that we have this morning that we all, inshallah, will benefit from. So just so you know what we are envisioning as the Shura Council, the Jewish Federation of Los Angeles, they have a 6 or 7 story building, and in one of the floors there is a section, maybe as half or fourth of this room. They call it Security and Crisis Management Department, where they have screens all over the walls, 2 or 3 experts, security experts, who are monitoring everything in Southern California. And if there is something that happens immediately, they'll call the synagogue or the school that's next to that area. They will contact psychologists and specialists what the message that should go out. It is such a sophisticated operation that there is no reason why we should not have something like this in our community. If, God forbid, there's a fire in Corona, we'll pick up the phone and call Brother Ahsan. Hey, there's a fire around your masjid. Maybe you're not aware of it, but if you are, let's make sure that our community, because your evacuation center as well, maybe we can talk to the city and see how we can benefit from that. And that applies to pretty much all the Islamic centers and schools in Southern California. So that is something how we can think of it, inshallah, with Maher. And our next speaker, Kabir Muhammad from security company Guard on Demand. Please. And for those who attended the event last week with Representative Ilhan Omar, you saw how great the security was going on. This is the guy behind it. So,
Assalamu alaikum. You know, I was always, when I go to these events anywhere else, it comes Kabir Muhammad, and I say, okay, but they don't pronounce it, but it's actually Kabir Muhammad. So my name is Kabir Muhammad. I'm with Guards on Demand. I just want to say one thing. Appreciate all the speeches that everybody has given, right on points and very helpful. Regarding the neighbors, I'm just going to mention one thing. Last week or the first week that we were after the New Zealand, I was standing in a Irvine Masjid. A car comes in, a white person, a lady, very nice lady comes up, and so I'm approaching her and say, can I help you? Oh, I'm bringing you flowers. And I'm looking at her, for what? She said, of course, for New Zealand. And I'm sorry, I apologize very sincerely. And I call on Brother Amin to come and greet her. That was wonderful. That is what we need. We can talk about security, we can talk about all these different issues, but the neighborhood is the most important components of any security, it be your home, your offices, or your institution. That is the most, your neighbor is your best friend and worst enemy. If you can't think of anything else, just remember that. I'm just going to go on the practical point of it because the speeches were all given, nicely done. What is the security? The officers, police officer, police departments are very good in with the community. In some community, they have more closer relationships. Some of them, they have just standard. But they come at the time of crisis, after the crisis. We have good community, good support. Yeah, that's fine. But security is there for prevention. So how can we prevent these things? So security is observation. We have to observe these situations. So what, observe and report, that's what security guard is. Security guard is not there to stand in front of an active shooter and have a shootout with them. Sometimes we don't even have any weapons or anything. Sometimes they don't even have a baton or spray. They're just there to observe. So to expect them to go there and fight for you, that's not going to happen, but they are very important in preventing and letting you know what are the problems in the community and what could we see in future. So security has to be visible, they have to be vigilant, they have to be, they should be able to observe, the observation is very important, they have to report that, and to respond to those kind of condition. Approach, if somebody is coming to the center that you don't know who it is, or for the first time you see them, they have to be able to approach it. So that's something that you have to demand from your security. They have to be able to get help. So how do we get help? We have to have a team of security and the institution and the center. Sometimes we call the police department, we are the security. So if we need a car, or I have faced that so many times, or we need extra police. They're not going to come because a security officer called police department that we might need extra security here, because that is the administration. There has to be somebody responsible in the community so can create that communication. And they respond much better to that, because that's a fact of life. I mean, they're going to say, yeah, we do it, but fact of life is that you have to have a contact person at your institution and the police departments. So, and obviously they do the access control to your sites, and so in that portion, if they're suggesting something, my suggestion is to work with them and demand from them to deliver that, but giving them support if they're asking. I'm going to just give a few practical steps for a better security. Is that every masjid should have an emergency evacuation plan and must be visible throughout the masjid. A lot of the masajid don't have it. I'm sorry to say that, but they don't. Exit sign. We have to have visible exit sign with lit. They have to be light up. If something happened, they have to be able to get out of the area. There should be a safety and security drill recommended every 6 months, but at least a year. And some of officers can back me up on that. I don't know if 6 months is good or a year on that. Emergency preparedness plan. How many masajids have? Can we have a hands? Emergency prepared plan. A lot of people don't have it. We're not even thinking about it, unfortunately. Creating a security team at your place of worship. You got to have the team, not just security, but the team. It has mentioned that we have to have people within the community to react that. Another good thing that nowadays happen, train and use ushers or the first life of descent. Somebody told me it's a bump check. I think PD uses that. Those are the people who stand in front of the masjid. They are not security. They are your own Shura member or community member who greet these people. What is the benefit of that? First, you see them. If somebody is unknown or somebody is nervous or something like that, you go to them and you figure out, you alert the security, because you have 1 or 2 security, and you have such a big institutions. So that person can communicate and can maybe signal out, and then you can alert security or law enforcement to take care of, talk to this person. Neighborhood assessment, which is, make sure you have a good relationship. Can I have 1 extra minute if you don't mind? And so that is very important. Neighborhood watch group, Garden Roof, I think, is doing that, and it's wonderful. I have been to them, the program. It works good. And also clear up the area around your masjid, the trees, the bushes, all the things, the hidden area, a broken door, broken things, hidden spaces. Those are very important to clear up. Invite the community to get involved. Earlier I mentioned that your neighborhood is your best friend and your worst enemy. If they see somebody, they mentioned earlier, somebody taking picture, if you know, we're not here in this community, there are not that many Muslim around close by or right directly, but there are other community that if we invite them and they come here, they will be our defense line too. If somebody is taking picture of masjid, going to tell one of the neighbors, you know, I saw this guy who was taking picture, be careful, I don't know what's going on, but this guy I saw was taking picture. That's a plus, we already get a point there. Also, have knowledge of your police department, ambulance department. You have a liaison over there. All department have somebody that they can assign to you. Said, okay, whatever you have an issue, talk to this person. You can call 911 and everything, but it's better to have a liaison in there. And also, the biggest thing is that to keep the masjid closed, you know, the door closed, make sure you lock up and everything, and keep the lights on. But above all of this, you can have 10 security, 15 security, but if you don't have surveillances, still you're going to be vulnerable. If any question I can answer, thank you very much for your point, for your time, and I appreciate it.
Speaking of evacuation plans, one of the sad stories that I've heard from one of the survivors in New Zealand, that when the attacker went to the first masjid, and he started shooting right and left, people did not know what to do. So they start panicking, running in every direction. So some of them, they thought the only and the best thing to do is just break the windows on the side and jump out of them. Now try to imagine an elderly person trying to jump out of the window. So one of the survivors that we met, who was discharged from the hospital, he said, we broke the window and I tried to jump, but I got stuck. My half body was inside and the upper body outside. And try to imagine everyone is on top of me. And that's why he got shot in the lower part of his body, and his legs were shattered with bullets. So it's important to have a drill, and that's something that we definitely need to start working on. Our schools have drills, our certain organizers, but masajid, I don't think we've seen any drill during Friday prayer for our community. And sometimes we get upset when we're building a masjid, getting the CUP. Oh, why they need extra doors on the side? Why they need exits? For that. This is for our benefit. Don't get upset when the city officials are trying to tell you this is the code. There is a reason behind it, scientific reason for the safety of our community. Even if it's going to cost us a few $1,000s more to put these doors, but it's for our benefit. So the next thing is the drills, that we have to work on them as well. So your masjid, God forbid, got attacked, got burned, got damaged for a reason or another. You call your insurance company. They might give you the runaround. They might give you, no, that's not covered, that's covered, that's not covered. So how do we handle that? As you all know, the Shura Council with Guide 1 and Mr. Nino Abushi have an umbrella insurance organization for all the masajid through the Shura Council. If your masjid is not part of it, we definitely ask you to be part of it. It has a lot of benefits. The protection is the best. The fees are the premium, the premiums are the best. And we will be all together as a group insured. So what do we have to know about this, Brother Nino? Please share with us some of these things.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulullah. If I'm going to take a little bit of history behind why I'm speaking right now and how we get to a conclusion that the Shura Council, superior malpractice, and Guide 1 get into a place. I started the insurance industry in 1991, okay? So I was 12 at that time, okay? So not too long ago, my own organization, we had a small claim. And that claim was very, very minute, very small. So we get through the claim, we get through the bells and whistle and all these problems, and finally they paid the claim. And after they paid the claim, we get a notice that we are not renewing your policy anymore. So go back to counseling. We're feeling bad. Our thoughts were what we're going to do next, and we need to make a decision. And where's Salam? Salam left, right? So Salam said something profound. He said, we need to be on the table. You know, paradigm has to be the same. So what we did is we start looking into companies that will sit down on the same table, listening to us, listening to our needs, and see what we can do. So with that said, I think it's 2011, 2012, we had the Shura Council, superior malpractice. Yeah, superior malpractice, by the way, does not reflect what we do with the masajid, okay? We cater to the healthcare industry, but the need brought up this. So we went to first company, they said, no, we don't want to do it. The second, third. Finally, we had a company that were listening. It took us 2 years before we had to put the program all together. Shura Council did a really great job of facilitating this. And alhamdulillah, it's been about 7 years. We have the majority of the big institution, the masajid and the schools under this plan, okay? With that said, now we have something what we called our own identity, okay? What we demanded from them is said, look, our need is different than other worship places, okay? We don't have glazed glasses, we don't have statues. We have the 4 walls plus, you know, the need. That is maybe the sound system and the properties. So with that said, they start saying, why would we come on the table? We said we have 80 masajid under the umbrella of Shura Council. Now they start listening. So when they start listening, it's a collective power of purchasing. So now they start listening. We had a hurdle because they thought it's like the Catholic Church where the mother controlled the other organization. With the Shura Council, each one has to be dependently written. So we're back to the drawing table, and finally we put a program together. Alhamdulillah. So what I want to talk about is 3 things. Anybody here represent and take, actually, the decision maker on the insurance policy that they have? Anybody? 1, 2, 3. Great. So now I want you to listen carefully. And the rest of you can take it to the next board meeting, or you can go to the president or the people that are involved with the insurance and tell them this. Number 1, when the last time you reviewed your policy to make it up to date to the needs, okay? Second is, do I have a comprehensive coverage on my policy? What I mean by that, it's all under one policy that I have the director and officer covered. The cyber, the counseling, believe it or not, counseling is essential and is covered. Cyber liability, you talk about BCC, it's essential because we've seen it happen. So what we did is we have a comprehensive package. Instead of hopping from one claim to the other, they're all under one roof. And with that give you actually time consuming and a power to go to the direct person and say, this claim has to be paid and paid in a timely manner. So with that said, with all my respect to the panelists, none of them is going to pay your claim. None. Anybody volunteer? Exactly. So what you need to do is this. That piece of paper you sign and now become an insurance contract that hold a lot of dust, go back, shake it, get the dust out, review it, and make sure it's up to date with your needs. Because your need individually is different than the rest. I'm here, we're here to help. Shura Council, great job, keep it up.
Thank you very much, thank you. Thank you, Habib. So that's also a very valid point. That's a very important thing. That means insurance, just like brakes in your car. You don't go shop for the cheapest brakes, right? If I tell you I can put brakes in your car for $5, would you put it? If I tell you I have tires for your car for $2 each, would you put them on? No, because you won't take chances putting your family in the car, driving on 80 miles an hour on the freeway. Sorry, Luqman, we do drive 80 miles an hour on the freeway. And I won't trust those brakes or those tires if they're cheaper. I'm not going to just go just because it's the cheapest. The same thing with the insurance policy. It doesn't mean just because it's the cheapest, it's thing. And with all due respect, doesn't just because the board member is an insurance broker doesn't mean that's the best policy to buy. just because his cousin or his nephew of the president of the masjid is the insurance broker, you get it that way. You get the policy that serves your masjid, so God forbid there's a fire or there is an attack, you're covered, inshallah, in the best way. And with this collective power, we have a strong voice in negotiating and demanding our rights to be taken care of. So thank you for that. We do have a lot of experts in the audience. We have security experts. Hussein Saqar is here. We have mental therapy experts. I think she left. But we have other people from different backgrounds. We have community organizers and activists, leaders. Bilal is here. We have a lot of people here who are able to share a lot of light or shed a lot of light on their own experience and suggestions for how to handle this whole situation. So I'll open it for everyone, whoever likes to ask a question. So let's start with the right side. Sohaib.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much. One thing I think that's we've all seen after this tragedy that's been a silver lining is the increased relationship building and trust building with law enforcement. So I want to thank Sergeant for being here and the other officers that are here from Irvine and the LAPD. Having said that, one thing, Sergeant, that you mentioned, and I'm sorry to jump on what you said, I don't want to disrespect you in any way, but I'm a criminal defense attorney, so I got to target you. Of course. So one thing you had mentioned was if you see something, say something. And to me, when Sister Adina said that words matter and we have to be careful in our messaging, that's a message that I first heard right after 9/11, and I first heard it on Fox News. And that message has been used against the Muslim community for a very long time, for the past 20 years. If you see something, we are that something. Many times that is a middle school kid bringing a clock to a school. Many times that's some imams praying in the terminal. Many times that could be used outside of our community, a Hispanic person at the border who's a U.S. citizen, maybe get checked for their papers. A black person sitting in their vehicle minding their own business gets the cops called on them by a white person. So how can we modify our message? And this is a question to the leaders at large. How can we modify our message so we're not adopting the language that's been used against us? Clearly, I'm not saying that we should not be vigilant. We should all be vigilant. We should be concerned about what's going on around us. We should be aware of our surroundings. But how can we make our response a little bit different than the response that's been used against us for so long?
Nice. So if I think three people here can answer the questions, Luqman, Marwa, and Idina. If you like all to answer, that's fine. But whoever, go ahead.
I think to answer the first part, you have to be very specific. So if you see someone standing outside the masjid with a phone and he's taking pictures or recording Muslims walking around, that is what you have to say. My name is Muhammad. I am at this masjid. There is a man with a blue shirt and black pants who has a phone, and he is recording Muslims and is recording the masjid. We fearful. We do not know what he is doing. So I think you have to be very specific in what you're saying. And yes, you are right. When you see something, say something has been targeted towards Muslims. And that has been before 9/11, actually, to be quite honest. But we don't need to get into that. I think what we need to do is let's just be conscious of the situation at hand and let's deal with it as it comes. And that's the best way, I think, to address that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that, CARE obviously has been very vocal about speaking against, protocols and procedures for see something, say something, because it's used against us. And I think in terms of rhetoric change, it's helpful for, I think, masajid and community members to think about, if they're seeing something around a mosque or around your residence or around a school, and it's out of the norm. So, this person could be taking pictures of a mosque because he's never seen a mosque with such beautiful architecture before. You're then reporting him to law enforcement, and he's now become overly exposed to a police investigation when maybe it was an innocent message. We should be able to trust law enforcement to make those determinations. We know when it's used against Muslims, it's not used that way. So it's just kind of balancing, the environment, maybe the person's temperament. If you feel safe enough or your mosque has security to go up to that person and, engage in conversation. We had a banquet with Ilhan Omar last Saturday. And we, for the most part, knew everybody who was attending who had purchased a ticket. There were 2 people who we did not know purchased tickets, and we placed them strategically next to security, and we were kind of doing our own profiling, which was not the best thing to do, but we were on heightened security. This individual checked in, had a ticket, walked in. He came in, he was at a place, it was an older white man with the, I don't know what the mustaches are that go from chin around. Yes, handlebar. He was wearing a motorcycle jacket with a bunch of veteran patches on it and skulls and stuff, and I was just like, oh, you know, he stands out. And so, you know, I had in the back of my hand, oh, I should go to security and be like, this guy stands out. And then I stopped myself. So I talked to some other people on my staff, hey, have you guys seen him before? Have you heard of him? Is his name recognizable? No, thank God we have a sister who works with us named Sister Cheryl. She's a white convert. And, you know, it was her people. She felt comfortable. She walked up to him, engaged in conversation, and it turned out he was a part of an organization called Jewish Voice for Peace, which are huge allies, right? So I had this instinct that, thank God, I controlled, because I mean, imagine how embarrassing and unwelcoming and inhospitable it would have been for security just to jump down his throat and scrutinize him. And turned out the other members from Jewish Voice of Peace, we thought, didn't recognize him at first. He was sitting at their table. Everything was good. So it's just, you know, thinking about your instinct and thinking of alternative explanations. Are there alternative ways to engage besides automatically going to law enforcement? And that's, you know, that's ways that we can think of, because our instinct reactions to, you know, maybe things that are concerning but not an actual security threat shouldn't necessarily automatically always be call 911. If there's alternative methods which you feel comfortable with, and if you think that you need training or background to engage in those situations differently, think about that. And that's
doesn't involve a gun, though.
No. I mean, obviously, if you see someone with a firearm standing in front of a mosque and they seem intimidating, that's something else. If you see someone just, you know, standing around, loitering, browsing, there was this situation I talked about earlier where the mosque had reported bottles being lined up at the mosque and they didn't know where it was coming from. Things like that, there's determinations we can make and think rationally through instead of automatically jumping to relying on law enforcement.
Edina, you have something to say?
Yeah, I totally agree on language, and I think keep your eyes open and engage is the way that you gave me time to think about different language. So that's the language that I think I would try to start with is, yeah, keep your eyes open and engage, because for the very reasons that have already been described, is something that you think, again, my gut says this person doesn't fit. You could say that for a lot of converts who already have been labeled as potential saboteurs in our mosques, right? Like there are so many, we don't need to feed more suspicion in our community. So if something seems out of place and you don't see a gun, engage, right? And if you don't feel uncomfortable engaging, inviting somebody else to engage that person with hospitality, right? The Prophet, peace be upon him, did not say that person looks suspicious, get him out of here. No, he walked up to them and started assuming the best, right? And think about the person who approached the mosque in New England wanting to bomb them or something, right? And they ended up asking them about Islam, and they gave him a Quran, and the guy ended up, you know, becoming like a friend of the masjid. What does Allah teach us? Repel evil with what is better, right? Until the one who's like your worst enemy becomes like your closest friend. You have to leave open that possibility. And I want to say at the same time that you also, if you don't engage and assume the best, you can be trapped in the worst way. So the Islamic Center, and quick story, this just happened in the last 6 months. The Islamic Center basically got ambushed by, I can't remember the name of it, some weird website where a guy stood in front of the mosque and like antagonized the security guard and started filming him, and the security guard got antagonized. Right? So somebody talked about security earlier, right? The security guard got antagonized. And I can't remember whether he pepper sprayed him, but I don't know, somebody who saw the video or something. So, and the guy filmed this whole thing and uploaded it online and used this as an ambush against the Islamic Center. And the video has gotten tens of thousands of views. And then those people who watched the video then went onto the Facebook page of the Islamic Center and wrote all this trash and negative reviews and stuff, because it made it seem that the Islamic Center was inhospitable to somebody who was just standing on the sidewalk, acting weird. And that guy was purposely acting weird so that he could bait the security guard into acting inappropriately, and it all went according to plan. So even in a place like the Islamic Center that has paid security, I mean, I'm just saying you still have to do this extra level of work and see something, say something, and just report people, report them. Security doesn't necessarily do it because it could backfire. I'm going to put it that way.
Thank you.
I just want to highlight that it's very, and something I think Dr. Subah you had mentioned, and I think you said we need to own the problem and not come from a place of being victims.
I'll take the credit for it.
And I really want to emphasize this because, I mean, I sincerely appreciated what Dina and Marwa shared, because we do our own profiling, right, of people. So we need to contain our unfounded fear, if you will, of people who do not fit in our context, because this is how we are in the community beyond our community. We stand out, and we don't fit the people beyond our community. But think of the many people who have dealt with you normally, even though you stand out. And so I am not saying we're going to throw caution to the world, to the wind or whatever. No, we need to be cautious, okay? Everybody needs to be cautious, not only us, okay? Because tragedies are happening everywhere. And no matter what we do, tragedies are going to happen. So we need to be cautious, but please, please, let's contain the fear that is unfounded and exaggerated, because when we feed into that, we're coming from a belief that we are victims. And we are targeted exclusively because we are Muslims. And I know this is happening, but it is not happening as much as we fear.
Thank you.
The actual reaction is people actually embraced us. Why are we here in the US? Because the US has embraced us. The US has welcomed us. It's only the minority of people who actually have hate in their heart. So let's be careful we do not respond with hate and prejudice and profiling, our own profiling.
Thank you. Kabir has something to say. Thank you very much.
I just want to add something from my own experience from the security point of view. Time and time has happened that somebody has come to us and said, you know, we see this person, you know, it's a weird person here or that person there, or, you know, profiling. We have to be really careful, because if you tell security goes there in uniform and start engaging, that's already a negative point for the masjid. So my suggestion is that you know, engagement, and we have done this so many times, that you know, fine, security will follow that person, but somebody else from the community or from the organization has to approach and talk to the person, because when it comes to security has two options: either get that guy out of there, and if he's not going there, anything called the PD, I mean the police department, and just get him out. That's the best they can do, because security guards, most security guards will not have that, you know, customer relationship that is saying, okay, fine,
True
we'll
that.
talk to them.
True
you know,
that.
and that's fact. I'm not gonna, you know, sugarcoat it, because that's not their job. Their job is to, okay, get them out of there. Make sure this guy doesn't come back. And sometimes they get intimidated. Yes, again, they don't have
right.
you know, the interest. So the community member or the shura or the whatever you have at the masajid at the center, they have to get engaged, say hello, and then if you feel like that person doesn't belong there, then tell the security, get them out. I think that's the point. Thank you.
Could I just touch on something real quick?
Sure.
And it'll take me like 10 seconds. And this goes to the word profiling, and I just want to throw that out there. We got to be careful when we say profiling people, because we should not profile people. We should profile their behaviors. So if for some reason you see someone, again, standing outside the masjid, but he's just standing there, he's not really doing anything. But if his behavior says something different, then now when it comes to the whole law enforcement thing, you have something to give. His behavior was A, B, C, D, and E, and this is why we did what we did. Our security team did what they did. So let's profile the behavior versus the person.
Thank you very much. Bilal is next. one of the we don't want to fall into stereotypes, by the way, and stereotypical judgment on people. When I was in New Zealand, again, I like to share with you these things. This young Caucasian gangster, bike gangster, full tattoos all around, comes to me and says, "You're coming from America?" I said, "Yes." And he started crying, and his eyes were red and sobbing and full of tears. And then he says, "I want to show you something." I said, "What?" And then he pulls his pants up, and he showed me a huge tattoo on his calf of a sister wearing the hijab and crying. And he said, "I got it 2 days ago after the massacre." So, and he's crying. It's like he's feeling like so bad about what happened, and because he feels like that should not be happening. So, yeah, stereotypical judgments, we are the ones who suffered from it most. So let us not cause it to others. Bilal, and then we'll go back Sheikh Tariq.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My name is Bilal Dalati. I'm here on behalf of the Eid Festival and also SIRA. SIRA is the Spanish Islamic Reliance of America. It's a new organization that was established to cater to the Hispanic Muslims. I'm here. I wanna talk to talk to Sister Marwa about the working with the feds in particular. We're just. By the way, I support CARE 100%. I was there when CARE started from the start, and we've been sponsoring CARE for years and years, and I support them, support their work, and I will always do that. So this is not to undermine CARE's work. We're making it a culture to go against the feds and the, whether it's the Homeland Security or the federal, the Bureau of Federal Agency, which is the FBI. And we're trying to scare people out of them. And we're forgetting that these people are working for us. We, the people, we're American Muslims, and the FBI works for us. And we encouraging people to work with the police, and we're differentiating between the police and the FBI. And there is no difference, because in every major city there's an FBI agent there that the police has to report to. Does the police have 100% clean hand when they come to us as a community? They don't. Does the FBI? No. It's their job to collect intelligence on everyone, not just us. And it's their job to report to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And they all share investigations, and they all work together, beautifully together, to protect us, to protect America. And there's nothing wrong with that. Now, to scare to make it a culture to scare the people of the FBI, I want my kids to work for the FBI. I want my kids to be involved with the CIA. I want my kids to be part of this country and to protect America. And there's nothing wrong with that. And when we scare the youth from working with those federal agencies that protect America, make it a culture, that's not right, in my opinion. So we really need to kind of change that. I mean, you're right to point certain incidents, and you're right to go against the FBI in certain incidents. But we're not going to paint the whole department and say we're not going to work with the FBI. So my feelings are, working with the federal agencies is positive. My thoughts, we really need to team up together. It's not them and us, it's us together as team to protect America and to protect us.
That might take a whole session by itself. So if you can briefly...
No, I'll make it short. Because I actually deal with the FBI on a daily basis sometimes and a weekly basis sometimes, and everything you said about them as an agency should be true. Unfortunately, it's not true, and you made a statement that I want to correct. They should not be collecting surveillance on our community. That is not their job. It is not their job to come in and to view Muslims as inherently suspicious and surveil us and harass us the way that they have been doing. Now, from my experience with the FBI, and I represent individuals who are usually contacted by them at random, the FBI has a policy and procedure where they have either respond to anonymous tips about anybody, and I've had them respond to anonymous tips such as, this Muslim family attended an event at the Reagan Library. Nothing inherently suspicious about that. That follows up with an investigation of coming to their home, knocking on their door, subjecting them to voluntary questioning, which I always advise people to refuse to do because they didn't do anything wrong, and it's not, they're not obligated to. Now, if you choose to engage and work with the FBI, some of the incidents and ramifications of that is you're subjected to constant travel delays when you travel. They continue to bother you and come to your home, come to your place of employment, come to your school if you're a college student to try and talk to you again. And they have no qualms over letting your boss know that they want to talk to you or whatnot. So it creates this inconvenience in your life that you shouldn't be subjected to just because you're Muslims, because those are really the factors in their threat assessments that they're making. Now, should we cut off them completely as an agency? No. Have they cut off organizations like CARE completely as an agency? Yes, and that's because we were very vocal when in 2008 they were planting informants in mosques in Orange County, spoke out against that. And CARE was actually the organization that reported the suspicious behavior of FBI informants that were there. So yes, all the things that you're saying they should be, aside from their obligation to conduct surveillance, yes, that should be how it is, but it's not. And I think that what you could take from what I said in my initial speech was if you are choosing to engage with those law enforcement agencies, we've presented what you should be cautious of, what our history is of with them, how they've treated and harassed and profiled and surveilled us. And if you wish to continue to engage with them, at the very least, have an attorney present to be the liaison between you and them to make sure that your rights aren't violated and that they're not exposing or using your vulnerabilities against you. Like I said, I have FBI agents I've dealt with that are extremely respectful and have told me, yeah, you know, I got this call about your client. I know I already have a letter of representation on file for you for them. I wanted to reach out to you and say, this is probably someone who is just reporting them out of retaliation for a work incident. And it's not really anything to be concerned about.
Thank you, Marwa. Appreciate it. Again, that's a topic that we will get to. I think one day have to open that discussion because everyone needs to understand what's the reasoning behind certain decisions that community leaders take, and also talk about possibilities of changing certain things in the status quo. Sheikh Tariq.
Assalamu alaikum. Tariq Atta, I'm the Imam of the Mission Viejo Mosque. My question is to Marwa, and I'm sorry I forgot your name, they took their Adina. Has there been any effort to reach, or well, before that, we know that, or information is coming out from ISPU and others, that this whole attack on Islam or Muslims is a plan, it's a plot. It's a much larger plot by white nationals, whatever you want to call them. So my question is, has there been any effort to reach out to the ministers, the pastors, the priests who are really fueling this from wherever across America and, you know, getting into a theological discussion with them? You know, Auntie Nuha said beliefs. Beliefs are what's driving this. And when we look at our own tradition, you know, the golden days of Islam, it's very clear that the scholars of Islam actually were engaging Christian religious leaders, Shiite religious leaders, all of these minorities, the religious leaders, and there was debate. Sometimes it was heated, sometimes not. And the goal isn't to convert. The goal isn't to prove that we are superior or anything, but at least give us an opportunity to let them know who we are, because sometimes that's a problem, and an opportunity for them to let out their frustrations and concerns. Has there been any effort to reach out? If not, what are the concerns in regards to that?
Adina?
There have been lots of efforts, and some of them fairly successful. So here's the thing, is when we think about interfaith relationships, they run the spectrum, right? So obviously most of our masajid and organizations have strong relationships with the liberal end of a lot of other faith communities, right? And so that part is given. And that's where I would encourage people who are in the room, again, we thought about being proactive earlier, being proactive to reach out to your more sort of conservative interfaith folks, reaching beyond the usual suspects. This is a really great time for that because their hearts have probably been opened through the pain, right? And so there might be more of a curiosity and interest that you can work with. And I also suggest using your existing relationships. So let's say you have friends who are Christian pastors. You and the Christian pastor reach out together to the evangelical pastor to say, we want to come have coffee or tea and introduce ourselves and tell you about what we're doing. So that that you're bringing in one of their compatriots, right, or one of their co-believers, and that there's a different kind of conversation. Sometimes there can be more fitna between the two of them than you and them. But working in a bigger way to say like this isn't a first time, I think is really critical. At the national level, I know that there has been engagement with the National Presbyterians, the National Evangelical Association. MPAC has even had the head of the National Evangelical Association speak at their convention in the past. There have been a lot of behind the scenes work, and I think there's always room for more. Where I think the challenge is, so we're talking about evangelical Christianity, right? But that's not the same as white supremacy, right? We're not going to lump Judaism with Zionism. We're not going to lump white supremacy with evangelical Christianity. Like, that's not going to happen. So I'm not sure how we engage with white supremacist leaders. That, to me, is the bigger question. Like, going back to this Quranic framework about good and evil are not equal, so repel what's evil with what's better until the one who's like your worst enemy becomes like your closest friend. I know people are able to do it with white nationalists and white supremacists and neo-Nazis, and the Life After Hate and other organizations really are testaments to that. As Muslims, I feel like that is like a huge spiritual challenge for us to think about, right? Because I'm ready to face the evangelicals faster than I'm ready to face the white supremacists. And I say that as a white European, born Muslim, but so we can't treat them the same. And I agree, and if you are interested in doing that, yeah, Imam, let's talk afterwards, because there's definitely introductions. Being in Mission Viejo, I know you probably have relationships with Saddleback, et cetera, but there are broader networks
It's one of the stories of success that we will reach out.
For sure, and it's been years.
Yeah, okay, but before I get to that, just want to let you know the Shura Council is establishing a lot of relationship with the leadership of other religions. Like Imam Taha just came back from, was it DC, Chicago, right? Muslim Catholic Dialogue, where leaders of the Muslims and the leaders of the Catholics are talking about things. And then in a few weeks, I think there's the Christian Muslim Dialogue, which is mostly the nicer denominations who sit down and talk with us. When I was talking to Imam Umar Suleiman, who is with the Kheen Institute, who are a think tank, an Islamic think tank, and we were talking about these leaders in the evangelical churches, and I personally said, but there is something beyond faith that sorry for saying that, but they really look for money, and they really look for how much money they make from their congregation. And he said, you know what? One of their leaders and pastors told me that very clearly. I cannot condemn Christchurch because it affects my donations at the church. I cannot say because it's all about people in the chairs and donations in the boxes. So that's sometimes we have to keep that in mind, that they cannot generalize that everyone is thinking that way. But yeah, we should start the engagement.
The best way to correct hostility towards Muslims in Islam is to do education and outreach based on misconceptions. And so there's studies that are done that show that, for instance, if you survey a classroom full of children who are unfamiliar with Muslims in Islam, the survey will show that they're more hostile, they have more misconceptions. If they go through some type of course that teaches Islam in the way that, the way that it should be taught, and they take the survey after, those things are actually corrected. And so at a basic level, because Islamophobia is so mainstream nowadays, I think for masajid and for parents, for children, anybody to notice if, hey, the way that Islam is taught in world religions, is this being taught in a fair and neutral manner, or is it off? Because that really is the best way to correct it, and you're starting it at a young age. Same thing at the adult level. A lot of people see education on Islam being dawah oriented instead of just there to be an educational resource. And so a better way maybe for us to engage with other communities is to do more outreach just about teaching what Islam is. And that's been proven to be extremely effective in interfaith circles or otherwise.
So I was surprised that you didn't mention MSN. MSN, Muslim Speakers Network. That's what we do. Shura Council's project MSN. We go to schools and we teach and educate people about Islam in a very educational, positive way, and we make the difference in the future generation. But also, you have to keep in mind that some of the people who are having negative or hateful feelings for Islam, sometimes because of something that we put outside our masjid, like a banner. Like, for example, one day I saw a banner that says, Jesus is Muslim. What do you think of a white nationalist, hardcore right-wing Christian thinks when he sees Jesus is Muslim? What do you think? What comes in his mind? Extremely offended. As if you're saying, whatever, I don't want to say that right now. But it's very offensive. When you put a billboard on the freeway that says, Jesus is Muslim, Islam is the true religion, Quran is the word of God, you are offending this guy who's stuck in traffic for 2 hours, mad from the day that he had at work, and the next thing he's going to go to his gun and decide to shoot somebody. That's how people think. When we put the campaign for the billboard through Southern California last year, 33 billboards through Southern California, we thought thoroughly what would be a passive, positive image without offending others. For example, smile, it's a charity. For example, the best among men is the best towards his family. And then it's nicely down there, it's Muhammad, that's it. You don't have to really shove it in their throats and make them aggravated. When we buy a church and we make it a masjid, please do not make it the opening of Jerusalem. Do not make it the Allahu Akbar, look, we converted the masjid to church to a masjid. Buy it and just quiet. Keep it low profile. When we have interfaith dialogues, the worst thing you do is you invite the converts to speak. Imagine you go to a church and they invite Muhammad to speak to you. Muhammad, by the way, converted to Christianity. These little things that provoke people's thoughts and feelings, it's adding to the boiling of people. So we have to think of that. So inshallah, all these strategies and recommendations will be up to you, inshallah, very, very soon. Ameen.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Amin Rafiq. I'm actually in charge and responsible for operations at the Islamic Center of Irvine. I just wanted to kind of share something that's been on my mind for quite some time now with me handling day-to-day operations and, you know, seeing the community members on a daily basis, running into different situations. And really what I want to share is it's mostly for the administrations of masajid, because I'm wondering if the reason why we find ourselves in certain situations, like just dealing with this in response to a tragedy, if it has something to do with a mindset that maybe we need to kind of look into changing. For a few examples, since first we're talking about security. Sometimes things happen. This happened. This has been like the worst of things, at least one of the worst. And then we come out in response. And a year from now, when we see that the budget is going down, the donations are not coming in the way they used to, the first thing we want to cut is security. Okay, and this is not about ICOI. This is across the board. I mean, I'm hearing this. I'm in contact with my counterparts from different masajid, so I know what goes on, you know, in the masajid. It's basically the same mindset, you know. And so what happens is it builds about complacency. But to connect the dots and bring it home, what I'm saying is that we're not looking at things, once we get in the masjid, in the masajid, we're not looking at them and viewing them the same way we do in our secular lives, okay? So, and I feel like this is the reason why we don't have an emergency plan. Brother Kabir spoke about that. To be more specific, if there's an earthquake right now, how many masajid are set up to be able to take in community members? How many masajid are certified through the Red Cross to be able to take in people to receive what they need?
4.
Yeah, how many? 4. Yeah, out of what we got, there's 78 on the Shura Council. Okay, so there are a lot of professionals in this is evidence of it, you know, and these are just a few, in a few different areas, right? So why are we taking our professional caps off when we walk into the masjid doors? This is my concern. So we're making strides in mental health, but relatively speaking, we're far behind. People have been dealing with these issues. We have people in the tech field, but how come it's so hard, like, to make a donation, you know, when you go to the masjid, and various things. So I think what's needed is maybe we need to look at a change in mindset. The brother Salam, alhamdulillah for his speech, and what he was talking about, he talked about looking at the cause of the problem. The chairman of the board at our masjid is a certified black belt in Lean Six Sigma. You know what I mean? For those who know about it, he's a black belt. So he knows how to deal with these things. We can bring what he knows, for example, just use him as an example, in quality improvement and analyzing the root cause and try to find out how we get to the, get to the root cause and find out exactly what's going on. And lastly, with, trying to help change the mindset of the our members, our community members, when they come in terms of, like we've been talking about our relationship with law enforcement, everything is not black and white, okay? And I'm saying that as an African-American Muslim who's a convicted felon, all right? So just to give you some context. So I used to be on the other side of that, and now I'm saying that, hey, it's not just like that, man. You need to have some type of interaction. You need to have a relationship.
There is a good point, though, that was raised up by some community members about this sad story of Hello Brother. You've heard about it, right? The Afghani gentleman, Haji Dawood Nabi, who I visited his house, met with his family, with his children. He was standing in front of the front door of the masjid, and then this guy comes in and he says, hello, brother, and he shoots him right away. I did not see the video, but that's clearly shown in the video. And everyone's talking about how beautiful and peaceful our community and welcoming, but some people raised up a valid point. It's like you see someone coming with a gun to the masjid, you should be a little bit more aware of what's going on. And so maybe Maher or Kabir can mention something about, or Luqman, what would you suggest when you see someone coming with arms to the masjid? Like,
I'm going to keep my personal thoughts to myself, but this is what I will say. I'd like for you guys to become empowered. And the way you do that is by, and this is no form of recruitment, please, but the Los Angeles Police Department and other police departments have reserve programs where you go through a reserve police academy, and then now you have full-fledged police powers, and you're in the community and you can, go on patrol every month or so. However, you are armed with a weapon legally. You are able to carry that weapon wherever you are, but you receive the training. You receive the training on identifying certain behaviors and how to act to those behaviors. So I challenge you all to become a part of the solution, and that way we can protect the masjids all over Southern California legally, and no one can say anything because you were a part of that police administration, if you will. So that's my challenge to you guys.
Thank you very much. I would like
Fatma
to address the two mental health specialists for a couple of things. One, I challenge Shura, which has done a great job. We need to speak on behalf of the voiceless, the youth. I've seen this video. It is horrible. And I think our kids are watching these games. That shooter felt like he was shooting people on a video game. It was traumatic, and I think we need to speak on behalf. We need to go to schools, to masajid, to talk to the youth, whether they're going to be extremists or they're been mentally challenged because of this event. It's really imperative we reach out to these children.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. I have a question to the officer and also the security person. I believe we're in a different time right now where we have to be vigilant. We just can't sit back and take what's given to us when we're attacked. That's my opinion. So, but you're, as an officer, as a security expert, for the Muslim schools that are out there in particular, okay, I know the masjids have their program. For the Muslim schools, just like the American schools have a mass shooting problem, security guards is a major issue. Guard with a gun or guard without a gun. Now, I understand you had mentioned before that guards can't solve all your problems. If you're having a guard to be the person to solve all your problems, that's not going to work. However, guards or police officers are your first line of defense when you have children, correct? So, when you have a school, you can't expect your teachers to protect the children from a person coming in. You can't expect administrators. You can't expect parents, really. So guards are your first eyes. They're also first line of defense. Do you agree, first of all, that guards are an important part of the Muslim schools? And second, do you believe that there is an advantage of having an armed guard that's properly trained as opposed to a non-armed guard that can actually do something if something arises?
Can I have your name and your organization? Nizam, from which masjid? Glendale?
Protection of children is everyone's responsibility, period. So this is what I will say. Teachers in the madrasas, become police reserves, have a gun. Now, you can be in a classroom and have a gun legally, and it's okay. And now you're the second line of defense. The security guards that are armed, I don't see an issue with it. I think it should happen. And I think because when you're dealing with young kids who can be, acceptable to mass shootings and things like that, hate is alive and real and well, and we have to do everything we possibly can to protect kids.
I'm sure there is an opposite opinion when it comes to that.
And here it is. Yeah, exactly. I have arrived. Yeah. I'm a parent, and my kids go to New Horizon, Pasadena. I don't want my teachers armed. So I just have to push back respectfully. I agree fully with officers people becoming part of the reserve. Omar Ricci, who's the chairperson of the Islamic Center of Southern California, became a reserve officer that was one of the reasons, community protection that was in his heart. So I get that. But when it comes to our schools, I'm going to say as a parent, it's the administration's responsibility, it's the security's responsibility. I know, for example, at the New Horizons School in Pasadena, after San Bernardino took place, and there was concern about backlash, that at that time they sent out information to all the parents saying we're now shifting to armed security, and that there's full transparency in that regard. In this day and age, when gun control is very heavy on many of our hearts and the other issues that are going on, I do think that this is a space for the Shura Council to facilitate conversation around, especially with the schools, with regard to where the boundary, not just, I don't mean boundaries respectfully, but just, again, what the considerations are.
Balance,
so,
yeah.
With respect.
My question is, people are asking for metal detectors, armed guards in the Islamic schools. A lot of voices are saying that's not healthy for the psyche and the mental health of the children. What do you say about that?
To have armed guards?
Armed guards or metal detectors, like making the kids feel that they're living in fear. Is that something, a legitimate concern, or we should be actually listening to that? Kabir can also, after they
So I'm not 100% on either side. I can see both pieces of it, but if we take on, okay, so the kids are growing up in this world. The world outside, it's just, this is the world they live in. So if we create this utopia of this is what the Muslim school is when you come here, they get a false sense of security, because that then becomes a sense of this is how the world is. They're not prepared going out there dealing with what's happening outside. So we don't live in a bubble, and so there's a way of how do we have conversations around this? And that's what I was going to reflect back in that segue. So as long as we have, it's going to start with the family. The parents are the ones who are going to be the first ones that the children are talking to. So are we having conversations with the kids about what their experiences are, why they think what happened happened, what are their thoughts around it? If they need additional support with regards to getting help or kind of having someone to talk to, then we can have them see a counselor or just or talk to somebody. But it's going to begin first in the conversation at home, in that environment. The schools are also going to have conversations around that. I think it's going to come back to what type of conversation are we having around the reason that there is, for example, metal detectors on campus. They travel. I'm assuming most of the kids travel, so it's not uncommon. There's additional layers of security, and so it's going to be how we frame it. Are we framing it in a sense of, we're afraid of the world and there's so much to fear out there?
Do we have a record or a track of the Jewish community? Because that's what they do. They put a lot of security on their schools. Now, the generation that grew up in that environment, do we have any study that says how they feel about that? Do they feel always in fear? Do they feel always under attack? What does it?
So in public education, because
Yeah.
schools are becoming increasingly policed, and they have actual police officers usually that are assigned to certain schools that are armed. Obviously, they're badged. And at some public schools, students do go through metal detectors, and there are studies that do show that there's increased demoralization of the students because they feel like they're the ones targeted by the security instead of protected from the outside. The second thing I want to talk about, my child goes to a private school. And this is something that I would encourage if Muslim private schools are going to include or do security evaluations. At my son's private school, what we do, and I'm assuming if your child goes to a Muslim school, it's a private school that you're paying tuition for. There's no armed guard at his school, but what there is added in an extra cost of the tuition is families pay for a fob key to enter the premises of the school. So you actually can't even get through the front door unless you buzz through and there's a video and someone buzzes you in, or if you're a parent that has actively paid tuition and agreed to it, you enter the school premises with a fob key. And so nobody can really come on the campus unless they have that key, and they're stopped from coming in at all if they're not supposed to be there because there's actually outside surveillance. And that's actually an added measure that all schools should be doing because it doesn't make you feel over-securitized as well.
All right. Noha and Snow and Kabir.
I'm going to emphasize what Dina said about the messages that the family is sending. Because, I mean, we live in a very complicated world right now, so different people are going to be doing different things, including the government, including the school. But we need to go back to the basics. The basics is the family unit. So just to take an example, for example, what happened with the terrorist attack in New Zealand. How did each family present the terrorist attack to their children? That is going to determine the mental health outcome for the children. Because the family is the basic unit. Is the messages within the family all about fear and us versus them? Or is the messages about this is a tragedy, there are some people who hate, and they were violent, and they did this, and we are going to be cautious, but we need to live our life? And the thing that I really want to emphasize, we didn't have a chance to emphasize it, what Dr. Subah started with, is the affirmation of the belief in qadar. Most of what we are talking about here is about our control, and we're not going back to the control of Allah.
So I'll second that. Thank you very much for saying that. One of the families that we visited, look how amazing is that. One of the victims, his name is Ata Al-Arian, who was the goalkeeper of the soccer team of New Zealand. I don't know if you heard his story. A young man with a young baby and a young wife. And we went to visit their house, and the whole family were there. And they were so happy that we came all the way from America. They knew of us. They saw us on YouTube. They saw us videos. So the fact that we are there in their house, it was very empowering for them. And then after we spoke and we gave our condolence and support, we wanted to hear from them. And then the mother stood up and spoke. And, you know, you'll think she'll be talking about her son. And she's like, we need your help how to build the future of our community, how to build our youth. This is qadar. He's a shaheed. He is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will give 70 of his family shafa'ah. And this is where faith come to play. And amazingly, it was so empowering that we felt like she's giving us condolence, not we're giving her condolence. So that was something very nice to see.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize this because we really, because we believe we are targeted, because we believe we are a minority and we are victims, we do not go to the basic foundation of our faith, which is our connection with Allah. That's what we need to start with. We should not be jumping into, oh my God, we're so scared. Oh my God, they're going to attack us. Oh my God, poor us. Where is our faith? Where is our connection with Allah? And that message needs to be the first one. And then we go into all the other stuff that we can do because, again, as part of our belief in qadar, our belief in qadar is not passive. It is active. It is proactive. And it is in the motto, you know, you tie your camel and then you leave the rest to Allah. So I just want to make sure we are connecting with Allah and then we're looking to tying the camel and leaving the rest to Allah.
Thank you very much.
I just want to thank the brother mentioning more security, more arm. Thank you. I should be happy for that. But the reality, is that you know, Sister mentioned about targeting us. If you look at the 2017 FBI report, that the largest targeted hate crime were against Jews, not Muslims, and Muslim comes to like I think less than 20%.
But there is a reason behind that. We don't report.
That is true also, but I'm just saying that, you know, the fear of it, that if you're putting a fear. Regarding the armed guard, I think my suggestion would be, again, like I said, I should be happy because I'm going to get more business. But the thing is, the reality of the fact is that if you secure our buildings, Brother Amin mentioned that if you secure our buildings, then putting like 3-4 armed guard here and there is not going to cut it, because what a shooter going to do? Get rid of the security guard first.
Yeah.
So that security guard has to be, you know, along with, he should have support. And what kind of support? You know, some of these doors, like if we are closing our gates, it was interesting, somebody was mentioning it to me, we're doing security on Orange Crescent School and also ICI, but somebody mentioned that if there's an active shooter coming and shooting from the street, you guys need to run and close that gate. I said, are you kidding me? He's going to be shooting and I'm going to go without anything and close the gate. So how do we take care of that? We should have an emergency button, you know, spend some money, administrations, spend some money to have electronic gates so that you push that button so it automatically closes that. The fobs, somebody mentioned fobs. Yeah, have them, you know, do not give them too much access, but do not make it prisons because it's not going to cut it. So security of the premises is more important than having too many security guards are important. You got to have it, but not too many. That's what.
Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum. Mahmoud Zubaydi from Islamic Center of Temecula Valley.
That's okay.
I want to first commend the Shura Council for really taking charge of this and being the leadership they are in from the first moment, organizing the phone call, getting everybody in real time, knowing what to do, and from where we are right now. And people probably take it for granted, but this is evolution of how we act like one body, and it's much stronger than every mosque defending on their own. And we want to ask more of you. The first response we had is, okay, we need to have an armed person, and then we need to have security, and the security is going to be 6 people, and 6 people have to be 12 to rotate, and then we need counselors to react, and then we need fund managers to act for all that. This is becoming a tens of thousands of dollars expenses. We can't afford it on our own as a masjid. And we want the Shura Council to act like the entity that they combine everybody and they use the critical mass. So, for example, we raised more funds because of security. We want to give it to the Shura Council so everybody does the same thing, and have an attorney hired specifically for these things that can cover the masajid. Have a mental health counselor that can go and give us a program. Right now, we're brainstorming about what is a case study on how to react to the security, the masjid, how to treat the community. This should be funded in a research that the Shura Council have it. They should, you mentioned what the Jewish organization do. They have a control or operation room. That should be done by the Shura Council. And we should fund it as masajid. I can't fund the $500,000 control room with staffs, but I can give maybe from the masjid, give $50,000 a year or so. And we want that proposal to come to us and we agree to it. We want something on the ground. This is the best time. And we have to,
Thank you very much.
Very good point. By the way, this is a forum. This is a town hall. That means we're not just questions. These are valid suggestions. If you have any points, please, we'll take them and we will definitely put them into the plan.
So just something more granular. We asked the sheriff department, what do we need to do, what to concern about? And they said, don't worry, there's nothing. We don't see anything on the radar. A week later, in our backyard, Escondido happens. I'm like, what happened to your radar? Where are the statistics? Where are the FBI statistics that we know they're in our masjid, but they don't give us the information that we need when we need it to save our lives? So we need somebody to push for that data, push for those statistics, and get it. And that should be on you with our support.
Thank you very much.
You have to remember, as a board member, and I'm sure you guys are registered as 501c3s, as a board member, you have a fiduciary duty to ensure that you're properly covered for liability purposes. And I had an incident with the masjid who was looking for legal representation, and the first thing I asked him was, do you have D&O coverage, directors and officers coverage, because it involved misconduct? And they said no. And I said, well, that's something that you guys need. In the end, the responsibility still falls on your board and your directors. And so it's extremely important to remember that. Unfortunately, if you're set up in that structure, you can't transfer responsibility to someone like the Shura Council. They should definitely be there to help facilitate the process and procedure, and maybe referral lists for you to utilize to get there, and trainings for funding, because there's a lot of foundations and grant opportunities that Masajid aren't reaching out to for funding. And we can all do better at reaching out to you, but that actual responsibility and duty, you guys have to remember. And I think that relates back to the mindset that the brother from the Irvine Masjid was talking about as well.
Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So like the two brothers on the end, I've been working in physical security since 1998. I absolutely recommend that every masjid conduct a vulnerability and threat assessment. But for right now, I'd like to take off my security cap, and I want us to address what is the common thread with all these attacks, not just on the Muslims, because it's not only Islamophobia, but we know recently there was the Tree of Life synagogue that was attacked. We know that there's attack on Mexican immigrants, African Americans, not just Muslims. The common thread is white supremacy. The day after the Christchurch shooting in New Zealand, our president said that he offered best wishes to the people of New Zealand without denouncing white supremacy, without mentioning Muslims. My recommendation is if we can form a coalition with all the minority groups in this country, with the Jewish groups, with all the masajid across the country, purchasing power, if we can somehow let it start from the top, have our president denounce the white supremacy that is the root cause of all these hate crimes, not just on Muslims, but on all minorities across the country. So somehow, my recommendation is if we can form a coalition to address white supremacy and the root causes of what is causing the hate crimes to everybody.
I just wanted to thank the Shura Council and everyone here for coming today. Alhamdulillah, it's been very wonderful. I work at a very small private school, small Muslim school. And unfortunately, I'm a teacher, so we're trained to kind of recognize the trauma of the students. And now I'm principal, and I realized that I had to not allow my students to go to Jummah that day because the men and women were sharing the video the next Friday. So just kind of piggybacking off of what the ladies were talking about, we really need to address mental health for the adults that are talking to their children. What I did was I took a proactive approach. I have some contacts in the government over in Virginia, and there's a wonderful school over there, Al-Fatih Academy, if anybody wants to go on their website, run by a very wonderful woman who, Dr. Afifa Sayed. She has a lot of documentation on how to talk to parents about current events, because the kids there, their parents are in the military. So they deal with it kind of on a daily basis. So what I did was I called her, I just called the principal and I was like, I need help. How do I address this with my small community? But one thing I had to do was stop the boys from going, so we live streamed the khutbah. So they still were able to see it and be a part of it. They were still on the masjid property, so I was trying to ask permission from the religious director, like, is that okay, But I think that what we really need to do is address the mental health of the community, because I can't have this for my kids. I had to address it in a responsible way. And a lot of the students are asking, what are the added security measures and everything. So thank you so much for coming. Oh. I really appreciate it. I think all of us really needed this. So thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Which school is it?
It's Claremont.
Oh, Claremont, okay. Mir. Into fish. No, you're not allowed.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mir. I had a question for the Shura Council on how we can make sure that every masjid is mandated to have the proper protocols in place for in case of emergency, like for earthquakes, for fires, for active shooter. I know a lot of masjids are proactive, and maybe the board of directors that are here are going to put plans in place to make sure that it's conducted and the community is aware of it. But what about for the masjids that aren't really proactive in that sense, and how can we hold them accountable if those basic protocols aren't in place?
We are working on a certification for masajid and organization, just like the Better Bureau certification, Better Bureau Business, so BBB. So we eventually, organizations and masajid will be certified by the Shura. It's called Shura certification. And that certification, not only security, but also governance, transparency. So we got that from actually donors, major donors who reached out to us and said, listen, we get a call from this masjid or this organization asking for donation. We want to start asking them, are you Shura certified? And if they're Shura certified, then they will donate. So that's one of the things. The other thing is that we try to get the board to write in their bylaws that we should abide by the mandates of the Shura Council. Now, it's a long shot. It might take us several decades to get that taken care of, but that's a start that we should all definitely have in mind. Thank you for a very good point.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hassan Basir. I'm from the Corona Masjid. I'm going to talk about this from a little different perspective. First of all, I thank the panel here because most of the panel is discussed after the fact. What we do is wonderful to have counseling after the fact. It's wonderful to do all those things, saying that, oh yes, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But where is the risk assessment for all the masajid? How many masajid have done that? How many masajid actually have a facilities and security committees who look into these situations? If you don't have one, you need to get one. Because you may have insurances pay after you're gone, and your family or whoever's left over is going to benefit for it. But you already lost your life. So the important part is, first of all, risk assessment, to make sure that you work with the local police department to walk through your grounds, which we have done several times, which we did again only a couple of weeks ago. Happened to be on a Jummah. And that same Jummah, when we had the area commander and the lieutenant on side, somebody was flying a drone over a premises and taking pictures or filming our premises pointed directly at the masjid. But the policeman said there's nothing they can do about it. And also people standing across the street sometimes come in from different churches, from right wings, whatever they are, they start filming us. I go outside myself, I start filming them. As soon as I do that, they leave. So we got to make sure about those things. Second thing, we build wonderful relationships with the community. They all come and offer condolences. We had a prayer meeting after the New Zealand incident. They all came, they said wonderful things. They are there to help and support us, but we have to be proactive in defending our facility. We do have a school on campus. We actually run 5 schools. We have a preschool and we have a regular full-time school on our campus in a school building. But we make sure that the facility is secure. We have fencing around that school area. We have limited access. We have put in systems and control in place where we have a silent alarm in the office where they can press a button and the alarm goes out to the police, the fire, and to the ambulance. We also restrict access to this thing here. Now, talking about the trauma of watching this video. I made a comment at the in the masjid, at the prayer meeting. I'm going to repeat right now. Maybe some people will be offended. Whoever watched that video is doing that murderer's job. That is what he wanted. And whoever was sharing it, you're propagating his message. So the other thing is we want to make sure all the masajid, like it was just mentioned, have the director's insurance, because without that, under the 501c3, under the state non-profit religious corporation, the directors do not get a liability exemption if you do not have insurance. Please make sure you do that. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. I would like to mention something that we need to start one person at a time. One of the things I'd like to suggest that we are doing that. We have started from our neighbors. When inshallah Ramadan is coming soon, when the Ramadan comes, we make some sweet or whatever we make. We go to all the neighbors, we pass it on, and we say it's a Ramadan. And also one thing we have done a lot is I invite my co-worker, my neighbors to the Ramadan to come and break the fast with us. And one of the most important things is that, as we mentioned, the panel mentioned, the people education and people, they know what's going on. So that's the first step I think everybody should do, start educating people what we are.
Let us define ourselves who we are, not somebody else define who we should be, and so forth. And one of the things, several neighbors and neighbors in the masjid, they brought the flowers, and they said they want to share their pain, sharing our pain with them, and also they said they are here to support us. And one of the things I would like to mention, not the people that converted to Islam, but the people that have a sympathy toward Islam, is they know somebody in the school, they know somebody in the masjid, they know somebody in somewhere the Muslim it is, or they're asking a question. That is how we become educated. That is we need to start. We need to build from the ground and don't look at so high up. And one of my questions is for the gentleman here, is that when you take a picture of somebody or second, isn't that have any legal issue with that? If somebody take a picture of me, I would not like it. I may be taking a picture of whatever, but is that any kind of legal implication if you start searching somebody, taking a picture, or reporting them to the police? I just need that question, please.
Thank you. I wouldn't like it if someone takes a picture for me from the bad side, but...
If I was taking a picture of you in front of a mosque, a synagogue, a church, and it looks suspicious, then that would be suspicious activity, and that can be a crime report. And that can be reported to the police.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Waqas Kokar. I'm from San Diego. My brother has already spoken on our behalf, but I do have one question, and I thought it was going to be controversial, but some brothers have brought it up. It's great. First of all, kudos to you guys for doing this. Absolutely.
Thank you for being here.
Really, this is needed. But my question is pointing to the lawyer and the sergeant, brothers and sisters. We have talked about what's going to happen, how can we avoid it, how can we deviate it, what can we do, how can we deal with the mental health. The fact of the matter is, no matter whatever we do, hatred is always going to be there. And maybe not tomorrow, not after 3 months, not after a year, after 2 years, it's going to happen again. And it's not going to be a shock. Please, let's be realistic about it. It's not going to be a shock. It was bound to happen. Situation happened. I mean, I'm one of the unfortunate people who actually watched the video. The next morning, I blasted my friend off, because after that, I did not sleep for a few days. And when you see that video, and some people can attest to that, in your dreams, you're not seeing those people. You're seeing your loved ones, and you're seeing your own community members where you go on a regular basis. My question is, I'm an action guy. My question is to both of you guys. You talked about carrying the gun legally, enlisting into your reserve and everything, which is definitely something I am going to go ahead and explore. However, not everybody does have that time. Not everybody has that courage to do that. Because what you guys do, commend you guys. You put your line on the line. Absolutely. Your life on the line every day, but not everybody's going to do that. Can there be an initiative for the board members, for the people in the community who was willing to arm themselves, not on a regular basis, but keep arms in the masjid in case of emergency? One thing. Second thing is, because how our religion is at scrutiny at the moment, from the highest level, starting from our president, there's nothing to hide about it. How will we will be scrutinized? I was actually planning to go for a gun license 2 years ago, and the reason I refrained from myself is, as soon as I get a gun license, I'll be on the radar. I'm the one person who hates guns. Yet, I got robbed in my house 5-6 years ago, and there was always something on the back of the mind. Question is, if we can we have that initiative? If we can, how will this Muslim community can be scrutinized?
Thank you. Last question, Ahmed. We'll finish with this.
My name is Ahmed Radwan. I'm with the Islamic Center of Sanaan. I would like to share with you an incident. It caused a lot of fear to us when we were at the masjid right before the khutbah. One person, he managed to bring a backpack, and he put it very close where the khatib about to start. And then of course, I panicked, and I got the microphone asking, who's this bag belong to, the backpack? And no one is answering. And then the panic started really building up in us. And then no one is still answering. And then I saw one person is still praying, sunnah. And then I approached him after he said, Assalamu alaikum. Immediately, I was sitting next to him. This is your bag? He said, yes. And then I said, oh, please remove the bag. So I would like to remind all the Muslim leaders in the masajid to ban, or maybe put a sign, if it would have to be legal, no pack bag in the masjid, period. Because it did cause a lot of fright. We were so scared if that bag would have been an explosion. Also, about the fire in Escondido, we all heard about they put the fire out with the fire extinguishers. Okay, so once I heard that, I checked how many fire extinguishers we have at the Islamic Center of Santa Ana, and we found we added 2 more. And then I was asking some people right after, do you know what is this and how to use it? You'll be surprised with the answer. They have no clue. What is this fire extinguisher there? What is it and how to use it? So I educated the brother and sister what it is and how to use it, because also it cannot be just only used for fire, but you could use it for self-defense. If this is the only thing next to you, you could spray it on someone's mouth and face. It's toxic. It will give you enough time to run away.
This happened. Somebody came in here. I'd probably shoot him and kill him. I'm right. Everyone else, run, hide, or fight. So the sister over here talked about the fight or flight kind of mentality. So either you're gonna run because you're scared, or you're gonna fight because you want to save your life and other people's lives. Make no mistake about it, somebody's gonna die. And I'm just speaking real and plain. Somebody is gonna die. Because if you have enough courage in you, whomever, to run towards the person who has the gun to shield everyone else so that they may run and get away, alhamdulillah.
So this happened in New Zealand, in Christchurch.
Right.
There are 6 heroes. We only need the name of one. 5 of them, they ran to the shooter and they just got shot and killed. And the 6th one in the second masjid, and we met him personally, his name is Abdulaziz. He grabbed a credit card machine and he went and smashed it on him and took his gun from him, and the guy ran out. So in the second masjid, only 10 people died because of these heroic actions. Not only that, when the police caught him, his GPS says the next stop is the daycare, the Muslim daycare. He was directing himself going there. These are the 3 buildings that belongs to Muslims in Christchurch. So that hero saved a lot of people by his actions. But yes, you will sacrifice yourself when you do something like that. So just keep that. I think the active shooting training would be the best thing to do. We asked all the masajid, we sent a letter, an example letter to all the masajid to write it down and send it out to their local police department so they can request an active shooting training in their own masjid. Most of the police, they do it in their own place. Bring it to the masjid, let them train our community on that.
3 reactions in a crisis. So this is a reaction that each one of you will not anticipate. You will not know how you're going to react in that crisis until that moment.
May
okay?
Allah protect us.
Because it happens within a split second, and it basically is your mind unconsciously processing everything that's happening and then making an unconscious decision. So
Okay.
no judgment about anyone and how they react in that situation. It's only a trained professional like, Lieutenant Luqman, may Allah bless every first responder because they put their life on the line for all of us. So trained professionals, that's their training. So they behave and they react differently. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Do you want to say something?
I wanted to respond to the
Go ahead.
concealed carry permit issue, brother.
Waqas.
Sorry, you were asking about concealed carry permit and firearms. So there's 2 things I've seen with community members who have applied for a concealed carry permit, and it's not across the board. It's been pretty inconsistent. So one thing that happens is people who've had their applications pending were stopped during travel and questioned during the FBI and Customs and Border Protection while they were traveling abroad about applying for the permit and why. And the second thing that we've seen is just being subjected to like further background checks more than what people's normal applications have been subjected to. I haven't seen anybody be denied a permit, but you will get put on some form. There's a chance, at least. I don't want to say there's not, because we have had people say I was specifically asked about this. The other thing I would say, so my mother is 72 years old and she's had a concealed carry permit since she came to America. And I can say she's used her gun like 0 times, even when our house was actually broken into while we were all home. Her and my father's first reaction was not to go for the gun. And like she said, that's your natural reaction is always going to be what your subconscious is processing. So if you go forward with the process, a lot of people actually pick that up when they're actually like carrying and shooting a gun, that sometimes it's, you know, they feel naturally talented with it or they don't. And
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marwa. Appreciate it.
So I was going to say, how many of you are feeling a little overwhelmed right now?
It's too much work. It's the beginning.
Nobody's feeling overwhelmed? It's just me?
All of us.
Okay. So there's a lot of information that we kind of just went through. There's a lot that's still to be addressed. And so again, Jazakumullah Khair Shura Council for hosting this and everybody on the panel for sharing a lot of information. But if we can just take a deep breath right now. We'll do 3 more of those. So just inhale. We can do something. We can't do everything. So if everybody, I mean, we heard so much information. If everyone just walks away with one aspect that they're passionate about, whether it's communications, whether it's getting involved with the PD and getting, you know, becoming a reserve officer, whether it's doing stuff with security, whether it's having and hosting conversations around this in the community, we can do something. So the last thing we want is for anyone to walk out here feeling overwhelmed.
So I don't know, each one of you got an email from me or a text message. I don't know if you read the fine print. It says you're committed to this cause, to help the organizations and the Shura Council when you are required, inshallah. So thank you very much for being here. I'd like to give the stage to Malik, the director of the Shura Council, about what's the next step and what's going to happen. And we'll be closed, inshallah, with the dua in a few minutes.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Sabah. And Jazakallah khairan to all of you for being here. Like Dina said, a lot of this is overwhelming. There's a lot of stuff going on, right? And there's so many questions that we have and so many issues that we're dealing with. And the reality of the matter is, I don't have all the answers. No one person, no one organization has all of the answers. And that's what we're about at Shura Council. Bringing in the collective people who have all of the answers. These are all of the people who can give the answers. These are the people who can help us shape that collective view of what we need to do for our community moving forward. That's what our goal is. So what we are going to do, inshallah, our goal, that this is just the first step. And we plan on going much further than this. We have all of the experts who are here. We are actually going to ask each and every one of them to give us a summary of all of the things that they spoke about. And even some of the things that they did not get to speak about. Like I know some of the brothers from New Horizon, from different schools were asking about, you know, pros and cons of having armed guards, different things of that nature, right? So that it's there so people can have the information and make their own educated decisions. We were talking about some of the laws in California about teachers being armed and different things of that nature. We have to know what the law is around these different issues. And that's, inshallah, what we plan on bringing. So we will take all of this information. We have all of these experts, and the experts in the audience right now will collect all of these resources, and we will make them available for everyone. This recording will be available for everyone. All of the resources that we have, if you know of resources, you have resources, let us know. Give them to us so we can share them as broadly as possible, because that is what we are here to do, inshallah ta'ala. So I ask each and every one of you, please, you have resources, let us know. For all of the panelists, you're on the hook, like Dr. Sabah said. You're in it whether you want to or not. Alhamdulillah, that's just how we roll in the community, right? So inshallah, please send us a summary of all of that stuff so we can make it available for all of the organizations, for everyone that is here, inshallah. On behalf of the Shura Council, staff, board, volunteers, everyone, I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank all of our volunteers who are still here, who came early, alhamdulillah, who helped set up. Jazakumullah khairan to all of you, and Jazakumullah khairan for you coming, sticking it out, and showing that we all care for our community and that we want to move forward, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for IIOC for hosting us. Nino, board member, Jamal, outreach director, and everyone who's here, thank you very much. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Jazakumullah khair.